Chapter 19. In the perfect world, the brat sure how was not suppressed. In the last chapter, he ran out and acted wildly. Sorry, he has been taken away. This was the easternmost part of Qingyang town. Outside the courtyard was an orchard. It was very quiet. At the same time, it could overlook the Taiyang Mountains. Yellow cattle plunged into the orchard and ran forward. It looked like it was made of gold, flowing with brilliant light. It was very magical. Chu Feng chased after the calf with all his might, but all he could do was follow it from behind. This 1-meter-tall calf had incredible stamina, and its speed was unbelievably fast. Most cows were clumsy and slow in people's mind, but yellow cattle was different. It passed through a large area of fruit trees, light and fast, as if it was flying on the grass. It went straight to an open area and left the orchard. A low mountain, not very high, appeared in front of him. In this morning, the sun rose in the east, and white mist came out. There was no such mountain in the past. It suddenly appeared a few days ago, and Chu Feng had known it for a long time. Other mountains appeared in other places, majestic and magnificent, but the one in front of him was obviously different. It was only 200 or 300 meters high, which could be called very low. In recent days, yellow cattle had been staring at it. From beginning to end, it had been staring in this direction, paying close attention, and only today did it start to act. Chu Feng was surprised. Was this the goal of yellow cattle? Moo! Yellow cattle roared, very dull, like the roar of thunder. It was expressing excitement and joy. After a few days of dormancy, it finally took action. There was no strange grass, no ancient trees, no vicious birds and strange beasts on the low mountain. It was very ordinary, but in this early morning, white mist came out, which seemed a little different. Yellow cattle stood there motionless, eyes burning with incomparable desire, waiting quietly. Although Chu Feng was curious, he did not speak. He was very quiet, standing together with yellow cattle, waiting for the mysterious moment to come. Not knowing whether it was an illusion or not, the sun that jumped out of Taiyang Mountains was particularly red. The morning glow fell on people's body, warm, and there was an indescribable comfort. At the same time, Chu Feng discovered that the entire world seemed to have a lot more vitality. Suddenly, multicolored light surged, immediately becoming much more divine, illuminating the great earth. At the same time, Chu Feng was surprised to find that the huge mountains in the distance, such as the depths of the Taiyang Mountains, were overflowing with colorful lights and surging outwards. An intense life force suddenly permeated the earth, Chu Feng said with a shocked expression. It was coming from those primordial mountains spreading out to the entire world. It made people feel as if their pores were opening up, as if they were being baptized. Yellow cattle did not move. It did not care about what was happening. It was still staring at the hill. Suddenly, the short mountain trembled and released a mist of light. It became extremely mysterious. Moo! Yellow cattle shouted excitedly. Disregarding everything else, it rushed up the short mountain and approached the place where the multicolored light and white mist were gushing out. It was a cave. Earlier, it had been blocked by vines, but now it could no longer be hidden. With a swoosh, yellow cattle dived in, unable to hide its excitement. Chu Feng followed behind it. The cave was very deep and led inward. The path was full of axe marks. This stone path was dug by people, and it was unknown which era it belonged to. It was not a natural cave. Inside the cave, clouds and mist were rising and the multicolored light was shining, giving people a very unreal feeling. It was a bit hazy. This was just a cave. Why was it so mysterious along the way? In this kind of environment, Chu Feng found that his body was becoming more active. There was a strange substance here that was nourishing his body. What was that? Suddenly, he saw it clearly. A small silver-white snake was attached to the rock wall. As a result, yellow cattle rushed over and swallowed it in one bite. Did it eat meat? No. Chu Feng suddenly realized that it might not be an ordinary snake. It was emitting a sweet fragrance, and after being bitten by yellow cattle, it turned into a cloud of white mist and entered its mouth and nose. It was not a snake. After yellow cattle swallowed one, It rushed all the way to the end of the cave. On this path, there was flowing light and overflowing colors. It was not dark at all, so there was no need to worry about crashing into the stone wall. Chufeng followed closely behind Yellow Cattle. He felt that it was not normal for them to run for several kilometers. It had definitely long exceeded the limit of the small mountain. One had to know that this was a straight path without any twists and turns, and there was no up or down. Folded space. These words immediately came to Chu Feng's mind. He had actually encountered it and experienced it personally. The road was very long, and they saw a few more silver-white snakes. Chu Feng even caught two and swallowed them. He felt as light as a feather, as if he had ascended to heaven. Was this a gust of white gas? Chu Feng was astonished. He was sure that this was a special substance that could increase one's vitality. It was absolutely priceless. Finally, they reached the end of the road. It was all misty, and there was a layer of hazy light blocking the way. It was unknown what it was hiding. With a mooing sound, Yellow Cattle decisively stepped over. Chu Feng followed closely behind. Immediately afterwards, Yellow Cattle was shaken, and Chu Feng was stupefied. He felt that this was too unbelievable and unreal. At the end of the road, heaven and earth immediately became quiet. There wasn't the slightest sound. The most incomprehensible thing was that there was a great star in front of them. It was vast and boundless, and it was rotating slowly. It was too sudden. Perhaps it could also be said that Chu Feng and Yellow Cattle came too abruptly. They suddenly saw this scene. Where is this? Could it be that they were in the starry sky? How could they see an enormous star? They weren't that far away, but they could feel its magnificence. Yellow Cattle was shocked, and Chu Feng was petrified. This was completely illogical. They had passed through a cave, and in the end, they arrived at this kind of place. The gravitational force seemed to have lost its effect, and they couldn't feel it. If we go a bit closer, can we reach that star? Chu Feng seemed to be talking in his sleep. That was an ancient star. There was a type of great changes to it, and it carried an aura of endless years. It was silent as it slowly rotated. Thick white mist spread out from that place, surging in this direction and spreading through the cave. Something is coming. Chu Feng cried out in alarm. On that enormous star, apart from the white mist, there were other objects quickly approaching towards the cave. A silver snake? He saw that it was that strange substance. It condensed into the shape of a snake, and it arrived together with the mist. Yellow Cattle opened its large mouth and began to swallow. Upon seeing this scene, Chu Feng wasn't polite either. He also began to catch the silver snake. He knew that it wasn't actually a snake, but rather a rare and mysterious substance. Soon after, he saw a lump-shaped object. It was the same thing, and when swallowed, it carried a sweet fragrance. Why was there a star? Whether or not they were standing in the starry sky, Chu Feng didn't care anymore. One man and one cow continuously caught the strange substance. In the end, their stomachs were bloated. They couldn't take it anymore, and their appetites were about to burst. Only then did they reluctantly set off on their return journey. When they walked out of the cave and arrived in the outside world, Chu Feng felt as if a lifetime had passed. Where had he been just now? Suddenly, the earth shook and the mountain swayed. The short mountain was shaking violently, and it began to crack. Yellow Cattle roared loudly. It spread its hooves and ran madly down the mountain. Chu Feng's body was full, and he couldn't run anymore. He grabbed Calf's two golden horns and sat on its body. Yellow Cattle turned around and glared angrily, but there was no time to stay. After several bumps, it wanted to throw Chu Feng off, but it didn't succeed. It could only go down the mountain first. When they were far away from that place, the short mountain slowly disintegrated. In the end, it shattered with a loud bang and turned into smoke and dust. But during this process, white mist surged like a river and rushed into the sky. It was so dense that it wouldn't disperse. After an unknown period of time, it dispersed in all directions and returned to the world. Yellow Cattle had forgotten to settle the score with Chu Feng. It shrunk its neck and waited for a long time until that place disappeared. Only then did it cautiously approach. Chu Feng also arrived. There was only earth and rocks left here. It had completely collapsed. As for the cave and the so-called folded space, they could no longer be found. How can there be such a place? It's connected to a planet? Chu Feng was puzzled. Yellow Cattle didn't reply. After returning to the courtyard, it immediately began to practice the special breathing technique. This time, it lasted for a long time. Chu Feng also did the same. He clearly felt that something was different. His life force was exceptionally vigorous, and during this process, his whole body was covered in sweat and he felt dizzy. After an unknown period of time, he finally woke up. He felt that his heart was beating especially vigorously like a drum. When I carefully sensed it, I actually heard my organs beating like drums. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. Immediately afterward, he discovered that his vision had improved greatly. He could clearly see a lynx on a distant mountain peak. This was impossible in the past. Chu Feng was startled. He felt that his whole body was stinking. He had sweated too much, and his body was sticky and somewhat dirty. At the same time, he felt an intense sense of hunger. It was so intense that he felt he could eat an entire cow. He immediately stared at the yellow cattle. This fellow had also woken up and was glaring at him with green eyes. Moreover, it was baring its teeth as if it wanted to eat someone. Chu Feng hurriedly took a shower. Then, he placed all kinds of food on the table and began to gorge himself. On the other side, the yellow cattle was the same. It had eaten all the grass and fruits. In the end, it came to snatch Chu Feng's food, including the steak. He didn't know why, but Chu Feng felt too hungry. No matter how much he ate, he couldn't be full. This meal was equivalent to 10 meals in the past, but there was still a frightening feeling of hunger. However, Chu Feng didn't dare to eat. He was afraid that his appetite would spoil. He could only watch as the yellow cattle swept away the clouds. "I'm so hungry." He was a little afraid. He directly went out to find an old doctor in town. He was worried that there would be an unpredictable problem with his body. "Why are you so abnormal?" Dr. Wang's temples were graying, and he had a kind countenance. But now he was quite shocked. He looked at Chu Feng with a deep frown. Chu Feng was shocked and said, "Is there a big problem with me?" "No, you're far healthier than the average person. Some of your life values are 10 times that of the average person," said Dr. Wang. He used some examination equipment to conduct a comprehensive examination of Chu Feng. Chu Feng was stunned. This was actually the result. "But I'm very hungry." Chu Feng clearly stated his problem. "Do you feel bloated now?" asked Dr. Wang. "No. Your digestive and absorptive ability is also 10 times that of the average person. The food is turned into the substance you need in the shortest time. If you are hungry, eat as much as you want. There shouldn't be a problem." Although Dr. Wang had never seen such a patient, he was very bold and gave such advice. "Please keep it a secret for me." Before leaving, Chu Feng urged again and again. He didn't want to leak it out. Dr. Wang nodded solemnly and told Chu Feng that if there were any problems, he could come over at any time. In fact, he was very interested in following up and checking on Chu Feng. He wanted to see what would happen to Chu Feng. When Chu Feng came back, he began to eat. While eating, he also logged into his communicator to check all kinds of news. Then he was shocked to find that some places had a scene of monstrous fog. A few mountains had collapsed, and essence energy was surging like the sea. Didn't this mean that it was similar to the short mountain? He just didn't know if someone had entered the folded space by mistake. "Tell me, is this one of the opportunities you were waiting for when you came to our world?" asked Chu Feng. Yellow Cattle nodded at first, but then shook his head. It took Chu Feng a lot of effort to understand. For Yellow Cattle, this was not an important thing. It could only be considered a good opportunity. Chu Feng was quite surprised. One had to know that his life values had exceeded 10 times that of the average person. It was caused by this. Chapter 20. Finally, Chu Feng was full and felt incomparably satisfied. His body was warm and comfortable. He lay on the chair and didn't want to move. He felt comfortable both physically and mentally. The hunger he felt not long ago was so terrifying. After getting rid of that state, he actually felt a sense of happiness. The table was full of clean plates. They were all eaten. Chu Feng was a little dazed. How much did he eat? Did he really become a rice bucket? Not far away, Yellow Cattle's belly was round, and it was sleeping soundly. A wave of sleepiness came over him. Chu Feng couldn't hold on anymore. He went back to his room and fell asleep. This sleep was especially sweet. He didn't wake up until the sun was high in the sky the next day. His stomach was growling again. He woke up hungry. Chu Feng was shocked. Did he have to spend the day eating and sleeping? Wouldn't that make him a pig? Yellow Cattle had woken up a long time ago. This guy searched everywhere and cleaned up all the fruits in the freezer. It was still not satisfied and ran to Chu Feng for more. What's the hurry? I'll stew beef for you later. Chu Feng's in a bad mood. He took out a big piece of meat from the freezer and entered the kitchen. Yellow Cattle's eyes were wide open. Then it became anxious. Its two golden horns were shining and white smoke was coming out of its nose. It looked like it was going to fight him to the death. Go, don't mess around. This is pork chop, Chu Feng said with a guilty conscience. In the end, Yellow Cattle ate a lot of pork chop and felt that it tasted good. It was humming proudly. As for Chu Feng, he decisively cooked a pot of beef. He solemnly told Yellow Cattle that it was goat meat. It tasted a bit fishy and was not suitable for it to eat. Yellow Cattle was suspicious. It looked at the pot from time to time and opened its mouth several times. It was unknown whether it wanted to taste it or say something. In any case, it didn't touch the pot in the end. This damn cow, its nose is too good. It will be troublesome for me to eat beef in the future. Chu Feng secretly felt guilty. At the same time, he cursed in his heart. It was just a cow, but it liked to eat meat. What made him feel a little relieved was that the amount of food he ate this time was not as frightening as it was yesterday. When he arrived at the courtyard, he grabbed a heavy stone table with one hand and raised it above his head with the other. He felt that it was too easy. Chu Feng wanted to see how much strength he had. He stared at the landscape stone in the courtyard. It was not light. Back then, a few people had spent a lot of effort to bring it in. It weighed about 600 to 700 kilograms. It wasn't small, so it wasn't easy to hold, but Chu Feng still held it firmly. Then, he lifted it up with all his might, and the brown rock immediately left the ground. Finally, he placed it on the ground with a thud, causing the ground to tremble slightly. Chu Feng was lost in thought. His arms were now shockingly strong, and he could actually carry such a heavy rock. It could be said to be universally shocking. If this was seen by others, they would probably be scared to death on the spot. More than 10 times the strength of a normal person, he said softly. Soon after, Chu Feng took out a timer and went out of the courtyard. He was ready to test his speed. As he rushed out with a whoosh, he immediately felt the sound of the wind and the trees on both sides of him rapidly receding. 100 meters in 3 seconds. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. Although his speed wasn't 10 times that of a normal person, it was still frightening. It had far exceeded the recorded speed limit of the human body, and he felt that it was unreal. He was in a daze for a long time. Next, he carried out various tests, such as vision, resistance, reaction, and hearing. Of course, they were all done roughly by himself and weren't very standard. These values were greatly improved, ranging from several times to 10 times. Chu Feng was both surprised and delighted. His body was slightly translucent, as if he had completed a transformation. Moreover, there was a faint fragrance on his body. This was a bit like those old Taoist priests and eminent monks recorded in history books in their later years. Their bodies were translucent and emitted a faint fragrance. It could be considered an unsolved mystery. For the next 2 days, Chu Feng didn't go out at all. He quietly sensed the changes in his body and practiced a special breathing technique in the morning and in the evening. He found that his appetite had returned to normal, and the changes in his body had also stabilized. These 2 days, Yellow Cattle was very lazy. It couldn't wait to sleep until late. However, as time passed, it gradually returned to normal and began to fiddle with Chu Feng's communicator again. After seeing this, Chu Feng's eyebrows were raised. He was still depressed about the last time he saw it. It was too embarrassing. No one would believe him, even if he wanted to explain. Bull demon, I'm warning you. Don't touch my communicator, or I'll fight you. Moo! Yellow Cattle was not convinced. I have something to do and have no time to waste with you, said Chu Feng. He wanted to find Dr. Wang to check his body again. Suddenly, his expression changed. He looked at Yellow Cattle and said with a smile, "Actually, it's easy if you want to fiddle with this thing. I'll buy one for you." After hearing Chu Feng's words, Yellow Cattle was quite happy. However, it immediately revealed a vigilant expression. It took 2 steps back and stared at him with its round eyes. "Damn cow, what's with that look? What do you mean? Don't use your wolf's heart and dog's lungs. No, cow's heart and cow's lungs to figure out my magnanimity." Chu Feng looked at it. "Moo." Yellow Cattle despised him. "How about this? Other than that special breathing technique, what other strange tricks do you have? Teach me some, and I'll buy you a brand new communicator later." Chu Feng had a fake smile on his face. Yellow Cattle opened its mouth and immediately laughed. It seemed to be saying, "You've shown your foxtail, haven't you?" Chu Feng was quite calm. He didn't blush at all. He said, "The communicator is a secret treasure. With it, you'll be able to understand what's happening in the world. Think about it." After saying that, he pushed the door open and left. The air in Qingyang town had been exceptionally fresh for the past 2 days. Taking a deep breath would make one feel refreshed. Chu Feng was deep in thought. Was this caused by the changes in the world? He could vaguely see that some of the mountains in the distance were overflowing with mist of various colors. The mist spread between heaven and earth, making this area even more refreshing. There were many people in front of Dr. Wang's clinic. Chu Feng was at the end of the line. It wasn't until a long time later that it was his turn. "So many people are sick?" Chu Feng asked. Dr. Wang saw him and immediately smiled. He invited him to go to the inner yard. Apparently, he didn't want outsiders to know about Chu Feng's specialness. He was very considerate. "You're wrong. These people did have some minor illnesses before, but they've been getting better and better these days." Chu Feng was surprised. After thinking about it, he revealed a strange expression. "Is it related to the changes in the world?" He guessed. "It should be. Look at the mountains in the distance. The mist emitted seems to contain some special substances, which are extremely beneficial to people's bodies." Dr. Wang nodded. He was also deeply surprised. In the past few days, he had seen many people who had old illnesses gradually getting better. Most of the people who came today felt better and came here to have checkup. Originally, people were panicking because of the drastic changes in the world, but now it seems that it's not as bad as we thought. Dr. Wang sighed. In the past few days, ordinary people felt energetic, and the changes were obvious, which made people feel very surprised. Chu Feng looked into the distance. There were many ferocious birds and monsters in the primitive mountains. If they broke out, it would definitely not be such a peaceful scene now. For example, the toad that Zhou Quan saw was as big as a stone roller. It could chase and kill all kinds of ferocious beasts and pounce on elephants as food. Dr. Wang examined Chu Feng again and patiently carried out many physical tests. In the end, he was shocked to confirm that his physical fitness had improved again. This time, it only took Chu Feng 2.5 seconds to complete the 100-meter run. The old man was quite shocked by the result, and his strength had reached 12 times that of an ordinary person. His hearing, nerve reaction, vision, and so on are also more amazing than the last time. "This is really incredible. Can it continue to improve?" Dr. Wang muttered to himself, slightly absent-minded. "I think it's the peak at this stage because I feel that my body is gradually stabilizing and my appetite has returned to normal. That's why I came for another checkup," Chu Feng said truthfully. "Even so, it's like a myth." Dr. Wang found it difficult to calm down. Suddenly, he sniffed again and said, "I keep smelling a faint fragrance. Is it coming from your body?" He was a little uncertain and showed a surprised look. Chu Feng nodded. After Dr. Wang confirmed that it was naturally coming from his body, his expression froze and almost petrified. He found it hard to believe, and then a look of shock appeared on his face. How is it possible?" He was dumbfounded and stared at Chu Feng, speechless for a long time. "Is there a problem?" Chu Feng asked. "How can there be no problem? If this was in ancient times, it would definitely be a big deal. Some old Taoists and eminent monks might emit this kind of fragrance when they lived more than 100 years old. Coupled with such strength and speed, in ancient times, there was a saying called the physical sanctification. There is such a saying? Chu Feng was stunned. Yes, the physical body of a sage. Dr. Wang replied with certainty. Chu Feng was in a daze. This was really a bit shocking. Some ancient records, although they seem very mysterious, can't be completely refuted. Some are still credible, Dr. Wang said. He was proficient in Western medicine, but he was a proper Chinese medicine practitioner. He had a thorough study of some ancient medical books and even dabbled in some pill prescriptions. Some of them were ancient books of Taoism and Buddhism, so he knew a lot. The limits of the human body should be able to be broken. Aren't you a ready-made example? Dr. Wang sighed and said, some people in ancient times could definitely do it. For example, Buddha threw an elephant. It sounds very mysterious, but if a person's physical strength is strong enough, he might really be able to do it. According to him, Buddha was also just a person, but because of his extraordinary physical strength, he could throw an elephant. Buddha threw an elephant and Taoist moved a mountain. These are all manifestations of the physical sanctification. Even after these people died, their bodies did not decay and emitted a fragrance. The more Dr. Wang spoke, the more excited he became. It was obvious that he was very interested in the relevant records of these ancient books, especially when he saw a living example like Chu Feng. He could not stay calm. You definitely can't throw an elephant now, but you made me understand that it is possible to break the limits of the human body. Dr. Wang wanted to dissect Chu Feng and study him carefully. Chu Feng quickly got up, said goodbye to him, and left the place as if he was fleeing. On the way, Chu Feng saw a lot. When he was about to enter the house, he heard the wind in the yard, accompanied by thunder. It was a big movement. What happened? He was a little worried. Would the bull demon cause trouble again? Chu Feng stepped into the yard and was immediately dumbfounded. He saw the yellow cattle with 2 hind legs on the ground and 2 front hooves moving. It was boxing. Strong winds surged and thunder rumbled, all coming from its body. Was this some kind of fist technique? Chapter 21. Chu Feng was rooted to the spot like a block of wood. He stared blankly at the yellow cattle who was practicing boxing in the courtyard. This fellow was too astonishing. Yellow cattle's hind legs landed on the ground in a steady and agile manner. Once it changed its footwork, it was swift with a hint of elegance. This was not like a cow at all. Chu Feng watched from the side and was deeply amazed. Yellow cattle glanced at him, but did not stop. Its face was full of arrogance and an indescribable conceit. The strength of its punches increased and became extremely oppressive in an instant. Its body was strong and vigorous. One moment, it was like a great rock pouncing on its prey. The wind from its fists surged as it swooped down with unstoppable might. The next moment, it was like a taotai swallowing the heavens. Chu Feng jumped in fright. Yellow cattle's boxing technique was somewhat terrifying. Even though he had never come into contact with it, he knew that it was extremely powerful. Yellow cattle was immensely proud of itself. It stretched out its boxing technique and became even more extraordinary. However, its expression froze when it glanced at Chu Feng again. It found that Chu Feng's hands were empty. He did not bring back his communicator. It immediately stopped punching and ignored Chu Feng. It was quite practical. Chu Feng was still puzzled. Why did it stop? He had not seen enough. That boxing technique just now was too extraordinary. At first, he was still a little confused. He did not know why this cow was quitting. However, after careful observation, he saw that yellow cattle was secretly sizing him up from time to time, as if it was trying to confirm something. He immediately understood. This fellow was really thinking about the communicator. Yellow cattle, I've chosen the latest model of the communicator for you. It looks very high-end and elegant. However, I did not bring enough money just now. I'll come back to withdraw some cash and buy it for you immediately. Yellow cattle's ears pricked up. After listening to these words, it immediately opened its mouth wide and let out a silent laugh. It was a rare laugh of joy rather than mockery. Chu Feng cursed inwardly. This damn cow was really practical. At the same time, Yellow Cattle pretended to wave his fist again and made a few gestures. Then he spat out a mouthful of white gas. This could be considered as calling it a day and giving himself a way out of this embarrassing situation. Chu Feng was quite speechless. Did they have to go so far? They had already stopped fighting, yet they still had to forcefully wrap things up. However, he saw that Yellow Ox was very calm and collected, so he pretended that he didn't know anything. Moo! Yellow Cattle saw that he was standing there motionless, so it called out and began to urge him. Without another word, Chu Feng turned around and walked straight to an old goods store half a mile away. As soon as he entered, he shouted, "Uncle Lu, sell me your most old-fashioned, cheapest communicator." "Little Chu Feng, when did you come back?" Uncle Lu pushed up his thick glasses and looked at Chu Feng with a smile. "I came back a few days ago." "Uncle Lu, long time no see. How are you?" Chu Feng greeted him with a smile. "I'm fine. But why do you want an old-fashioned communicator? Don't young people nowadays like new ones?" Uncle Lu was puzzled. "I'm useful. However, it doesn't matter if the function is outdated, as long as it looks new," Chu Feng emphasized. "Although this is an old goods store, no one is willing to buy old-fashioned communicators, so I don't have many of them," Uncle Lu said. He rummaged through the cabinets and finally found a few. These things could not be sold normally. Unless a few nostalgic people bought them, they had no value. Chu Feng took a fancy to a huge one. It looked new. Except for the screen, the other parts were silver and shiny. "This is it, little Chu. Although this one looks new, its function is obviously not as good as the other ones," Uncle Lu said. "It doesn't matter. It's good this way. It looks new, and that's enough." Chu Feng decided to take it. Uncle Lu was a little speechless, but he did not say much. In the end, when he saw that Chu Feng was about to pay, he waved his hand and said, "Forget it. This broken thing is taking up space. You can have it." "Okay, Uncle Lu. I'll bring you a bottle of good wine next time." Chu Feng did not treat him as an outsider. "Right, little Chu, before you came back a while ago, a few young people came to town. When they passed by here, I think I heard them say that they were looking for you." When Chu Feng was about to leave, Uncle Lu mentioned this matter. He was stunned. Who was looking for him? If it was a classmate or friend, they should have contacted him first. Those young people looked unusual. One of them was a very beautiful girl. Uncle Lu said and told him what he saw. Chu Feng left with doubts. He really could not guess who was looking for him. "Yellow Cattle, look, I brought you a high-end communicator. It's better than the one I use myself," Chu Feng shouted as soon as he entered the yard. Yellow Cattle rushed over with a swoosh. Still on its hind legs, it grabbed the communicator with its two front hooves and held it in its arms. It glanced at its brand-new silver-white communicator, and then at the one Chu Feng was using. It sneered at Chu Feng. "You're so unkind. I bought you the most high-end communicator, and you still look down on me? Forget it. I'm a generous person. I won't argue with you. Quick, teach me how to use that fist technique," Chu Feng said. Yellow Cattle ignored him. It put the communicator on the stone table. Its front hooves emitted a pale golden light as it poked the communicator randomly. Finally, it was angry because it had not been activated. It turned to look at Chu Feng with white smoke coming out of its nose and questioned him. "It's not charged yet," Chu Feng said slowly. He saw that it did not make a sound when it was poking the communicator. "Moo!" Yellow Cattle carefully picked up the brand-new communicator and very cautiously handed it to Chu Feng so that he could charge it. When it saw Chu Feng casually throw the silvery white communicator on the desk in the room, and then casually pull out a power cord and plug it in, its eyes almost popped out. It meant, "Be careful, don't break my high-end product." At the same time, it did not forget to look at Chu Feng's communicator with contempt again. During the charging process, Yellow Cattle began to poke the communicator randomly. However, in the end, it was a little hesitant. After all, it did not understand the language. Although it was very interested in using it, there were too many obstacles. When it came closer and started to hum, Chu Feng spent a long time to roughly understand what it meant. "What are you doing? Putting my contact in your communicator? I'll let you go as far as you can." Chu Feng was very angry when he thought about what had happened last time. Yellow Cattle was very interested in this thing that could communicate with people thousands of miles away. But how could Chu Feng agree? This wish could not be fulfilled, so it asked Chu Feng to teach it how to read those video reports. If you can read, everything will be simple. You can talk, watch videos, and read text reports. There will be no problem. Chu Feng guided it patiently. This was what he had planned for a long time. As expected, Yellow Cattle nodded. It came to this world with a purpose. If it could recognize the language of this world and had a communicator in hand, it felt that it would be much more convenient. You teach me fist techniques, and I will teach you how to read. Chu Feng smiled. Yellow Cattle stared at him and mooed a few times, as if to say, "This is premeditated. In general, this will be beneficial to you. This world is not peaceful anymore. I'm just trying to protect myself. Only by surviving can I help you find that strange little tree in Kunlun." Chu Feng said. Yellow Cattle stretched out a front hoof and pointed at him. Finally, it stared at him and nodded. It was a compromise. For the next 3 days, Chu Feng practiced fist techniques. However, the first style of this fist technique was very difficult to practice. Every time he swung his fist, he had to bring forth a terrifying force. He had learned boxing before, so his skills were extraordinary. However, this fist technique was completely different. Every time he swung his fist, he could feel that his fist was covered with a layer of strange force. Especially when Yellow Cattle asked him to practice the breathing technique, it was even more extraordinary. Occasionally, his fist would produce a muffled sound of thunder. Chu Feng was pleasantly surprised and intoxicated. In the past few days, Yellow Cattle had learned a lot of words and was quite smart. This was the reason why Chu Feng did not dare to teach it more. He said that he wanted it to consolidate. He was afraid that Yellow Cattle would renege on its promise and not teach him fist techniques anymore. In these 3 days, Fatso Zhou in the county town was going crazy. This was because the only contact in Yellow Cattle's communicator was Zhou Quan. It was Chu Feng who helped it enter that number. In these 3 days, whenever it thought of it, it would call Fatso. Sometimes it was noon, sometimes it was midnight, and sometimes it was dawn. Anyway, as long as it was idle, it would poke a few times to call Fatso and mood a few times with him. "Oh, Bull Demon, I will kill you sooner or later. It's fine if you talk to me in the middle of the night, but now you're calling me again. It's almost dawn, and I just fell asleep. I can't take it anymore." Zhou Quan was going crazy. He was harassed by Yellow Cattle day and night. However, he could not always turn off the communicator. Recently, the world was not peaceful. Some of his relatives and friends were not here. They had not returned yet, so he had to contact them frequently. "I'm warning you. If you harass me again, I will really stew you alive next time." Zhou Quan was exasperated. However, Yellow Ox found it amusing every time Zhou Quan was angered to the point where he would stomp his feet in anger. This had become Yellow Ox's wicked hobby. Therefore, Zhou Quan's warning was useless. "Chu Feng, what have you done? Bull Demon, I want to eat you alive." Ah, Zhou Quan wanted to cry, but had no tears. On the 4th day, Yellow Cattle had learned quite a lot of words. At Chu Feng's request, it wrote down the name of the fist technique. Although the words were crooked, they were still recognizable. "Mighty Bull Demon Fist." Chu Feng read it out. Yellow Cattle proudly raised its head and raised its nostrils. It was very proud of this fist technique. It was as if it was saying that this was a very impressive fist technique. "This name is very old-fashioned," Chu Feng said. "Moo." Yellow Cattle was furious. It let out a roar, causing the room to tremble. "You guard the house. I'm going out for a while." Chu Feng hid out of the house. He went to Zhao Sanyi's house to get the crossbow. Calculating the time, it should have been polished. There were many people in Zhao Sanyi's weapon workshop. Because of the changes in the world, everyone wanted to buy some self-defense weapons. "Little Chu, you're here. I've already prepared it for you. If you didn't come, I would have sent it to you." Zhao Sanyi was tall and had a very stiff head of short hair. His voice was loud and clear as he laughed. "Thank you, Zhao Sanyi." Chu Feng smiled. He picked up the package and felt that it was very heavy. On the way, When passing by the old goods shop, Uncle Lou greeted him and told him, "Little Chew, the young people from last time are here again. However, there are a few less. They went to your house." Chapter 22. The streets were quiet. Recently, people had gotten over the mental hurdle. They were no longer panicking or afraid. The crying of women and children was rarely heard. Chu Feng walked along the bluestone road to his residence. It was located in the easternmost part of the town, next to the orchard. It was very quiet. Would the yellow cattle cause trouble? He was a little worried. This guy was not a law-abiding person, although he had already told him to hide if someone approached. However, this guy might not be obedient. It was too eye-catching. Its whole body was golden, and even its horns seemed to be cast in gold. Anyone who saw it would think it was abnormal. The yard was very quiet. He didn't hear the sound of people shouting or the cows moaning. This made Chu Feng feel a little relieved. When he walked into the yard, he didn't see anyone. He couldn't help but frown. Wasn't someone looking for him? They shouldn't have left so quickly. Chu Feng had always been curious as to who it was that had come to find him in such a perilous situation where the roads between the cities had been severed and the lands were in turmoil. This time, he didn't want to miss it. He must know. Suddenly, a figure appeared on the balcony of the study on the second floor. It was a young man with a faint smile. He stood on the balcony and looked at Chu Feng. Chu Feng was a little unhappy. He had never seen this person before. It was very rude for a stranger to break into his study without caring about the master's feelings. In particular, this person was very calm. He stood there without saying a word. He just looked at Chu Feng indifferently, as if he was the master of this place. "Who are you?" Chu Feng asked. Was this one of the young men that Uncle Lou mentioned? But he didn't know him. "Zhuijun," the young man responded. He jumped down from the balcony of the second floor and landed in the yard. His movements were agile and neat. He was of medium build, wheat-colored skin, stiff short hair, and piercing eyes. He was not handsome, but he had a very good temperament. This young man named Zhuijun. He didn't look like an ordinary person. He looked like a soldier who appeared in the jungle all year round. However, it was probably not the case. He had a sharp and arrogant aura about him. It was obvious that he was not the kind of person who liked to listen to orders. "I don't know you." Chu Feng stared at him. "Don't we know each other now?" Zhuijun said. He was very calm. He looked Chu Feng up and down with a scrutinizing gaze. Chu Feng was extremely disgusted. This was his own home, but this person had turned from guest to host. He did not care about his feelings at all and was somewhat pressuring him. "If there's nothing else, please leave." "I don't know you." Chu Feng asked him to leave. "Do you think I willingly came to this crappy place? I was just asked to see how you were doing." Zhuijun said. "Who asked him to do this?" Zhuijun did not answer. He circled around Chu Feng and scrutinized him from head to toe. He had been scrutinizing Chu Feng ever since they first met, and now he was even more outrageous. "He's just a little more handsome. Apart from that, there's nothing special about him," Zhuijun concluded. Self-righteous. Chu Feng felt even more disgusted. This was the first time they had met, and they didn't understand each other. What do they possibly know? Yet, this person had come to such a conclusion. "Don't hate it. I'm telling you the truth. I'm saving you some face by saying you're ordinary," Zhuijun said bluntly. His eyes were sharp as he stared at Chu Feng intently. "People like you can only be considered as ordinary. The world is different now. I think that if there are no accidents, you will be relegated to the bottom of the hierarchy." "Are you crazy?" Chu Feng was extremely disgusted. This person's tone was like he was lecturing him. It was as if he was standing at a very high place, giving advice on his life. "Get out of here." Chu Feng pointed at the courtyard gate. "Get out?" Zhuijun's eyes were very sharp, as if they were filled with thorns. Coupled with his tan skin and short hair, it was obvious that he was a tough person. "How dare you talk to me like that?" He shook his head as if he found Chu Feng's words ridiculous. "Do you think you're so great? What gives you the right to come to my house and flaunt your strength?" Chu Feng tried his best to control himself. He didn't want to fight with this person. He just wanted to get rid of him. "Do you think I have nothing better to do?" Tying Mountain is a magnificent mountain range. It is one of the most famous mountains in the world. Now, there are treasures everywhere. My time is very precious. If it wasn't for someone who asked us to take care of you while we were traveling in this area, I wouldn't have come here. Zwajun snorted. You can leave now. I don't need your care. Chu Feng frowned and looked at Zwajun. This kind of care was really annoying. Chu Feng ignored him and went straight upstairs to his study. There were some papers he used to teach yellow cattle how to read. And Zwajun had been in this room before. Zwajun sneered and said, You still don't understand what era you are living in. Well, for people like you who are at the bottom of society, you can't even come into contact with that level of society. You're always slow to realize how big the gap between you and me is. Zwajun was very casual. He followed Chu Feng and entered Chu Feng's study again. Get out of here. Chu Feng had had enough of him. He shouted at Zwajun, idiot. Zwajun's face turned cold. You don't know anything. Then, with a look of contempt, he said, You were just lucky in the past to know that person. Now he's a little bit sentimental, but that may not be the case in the future. How big is the gap between a god and a beggar? I only had a little bit of interaction with you when I was ignorant, but that's all. In the future, the gap between us will become an insurmountable chasm. Chu Feng looked at him calmly and said, Are you done? Get out. Don't yell at me. You still don't understand the gap between a mortal and a person like me. It is not something you can offend, is what Jun said coldly. Then, he looked at Chu Feng and said, Now go pack your things. We are going to the county town. Chu Feng suppressed his anger and gradually calmed down. He asked, Why are we going there? He restrained himself. He wanted to know more about the situation. Taihang Mountain is full of treasures. I came to Taihang Mountain with a few people. We are in charge of this area. Now that we have settled down in the county town, I can guarantee your safety. I was entrusted to do my best, Zwajun said calmly. There is a group of people in the outside world near Taihang Mountain. The light in Chu Feng's eyes faded. I'm fine here. I don't want to go to the county town. Chu Feng refused. He then asked, What kind of people are you? Although he had already guessed it, he wanted to confirm it. You are just a mortal. There is no need for you to know so much. Our world is not something you can touch. Just be obedient and live your ordinary life. Come with me later. Zwajun was disdainful. He had lost his patience. You can go now. I will not go with you. Chu Feng walked out of the study. You really don't know what you are capable of. You don't know what is good for you. Do you really expect others to come and pick you up? If that is the case, I can only say that you are stupid. Zwajun, huh? When passing by Chu Feng's bedroom, Zwajun caught a glimpse of a black dagger. He stopped dead in his tracks and strode over to it. Don't move. Chu Feng reacted quickly. He caught up to Zwajun and grabbed the dagger. This dagger is ancient and extraordinary. Did you find it somewhere by chance? Give it to me, Zwajun said in a deep voice. His tone was imposing, almost like an order. The black dagger was about a foot long. Chu Feng found it outside the train. The ancient man died mysteriously. He was hung on a giant vine. At the same time, there was a satellite on the vine. He was shocked when he saw it. This is mine. It has nothing to do with you. Chu Feng refused. This sword embryo is not bad. It is ancient. It is not an ordinary item. How about this? You give it to me as a gift. I will take care of you in the future. Otherwise, it would be a waste to leave it in the hands of a mortal like you. Zwajun's words were not polite. He had no scruples and was very self-centered. His words were exceptionally harsh. Chu Feng looked at him coldly and said nothing. Zwajun was here to take care of Chu Feng? How disgusting. In the end, Chu Feng still wanted to snatch his black dagger. Give it to me. Zwajun stretched out his hand and said in a commanding tone. Chu Feng ignored him. His face was cold. Zwajun reached out his hand to grab the dagger. Ever since he saw this sword embryo, he knew that it might be an extraordinary weapon. How could he allow it to fall into the hands of a mortal? Dong! At this moment, Chu Feng no longer restrained himself, nor did he want to endure any longer. At such a close distance, he threw a punch at Zwajun's lower abdomen. The punch caused Zwajun's body to curl up like a shrimp. Then, Zwajun was sent flying with a loud bang. Pain was written all over Zwajun's face. He was pale. He was shocked. He could not believe that he was injured by a mortal who was at the bottom of society. Chu Feng's strength was 12 times that of an ordinary person. At this moment, his body was slightly translucent and emitted a refreshing fragrance. In ancient times, he would be considered a saint. Chapter 23. Zwajun's face was contorted. The pain was so intense that he felt as if his abdomen had been split open and his intestines had been broken. The punch sent him flying. He crashed into the wall on the side of the bedroom with a bang, causing a slight tremor. Chu Feng's strength was 12 times that of an ordinary person. If an ordinary person was hit by his punch, their intestines would definitely be damaged. It would be like being hit by a boulder and they would never be able to get up again. Zwajun bent his body and fell to the ground like a shrimp. However, he was very tenacious. Enduring the pain, he pushed himself off the ground with both hands and was about to leap up to fight back. Chu Feng was surprised. His punch was so powerful that if he put more strength into it, it would most likely pierce through a person's body, which would be fatal. However, his opponent had endured it and was still trying to attack him. Chu Feng was a decisive person. He stepped forward at incredible speed. It only took him 2.5 seconds to cover 100 meters. In the blink of an eye, he was right in front of Zwajun. Before Zwajun could leap up, he had already smashed his foot down. With a loud bang, Zwajun suffered a heavy blow on his back. He immediately let out a muffled groan. His face was twisted in pain, looking slightly ferocious. He fell to the ground directly, unable to get up. He was so embarrassed that he flew into a rage. How could a mere mortal have such great strength? Earlier, he looked down on Chu Feng with contempt. But now, he was injured by his opponent and could not catch his breath. "You are courting death," he growled. His body swelled, and the bones in his flesh and blood crackled. His body seemed to be expanding. Chu Feng did not want his bedroom to be damaged. He picked Zwajun up and threw him directly from the balcony to the yard. "Chu Feng, you have successfully angered me. You will suffer a fate worse than death," Zwajun said coldly as he fell from Chu Feng's palm. However, he had underestimated Chu Feng's speed. As he jumped off the balcony of the second floor, Chu Feng stepped on his back. Bang! When the two landed on the ground, the yard trembled slightly. It was obvious how powerful Chu Feng's strength was. Zwajun was lying flat on the ground, which was equivalent to being stepped on by Chu Feng. The fall made all his bones feel like they were broken. The most terrifying thing was the kick on his waist. Pooh! He couldn't hold it in and coughed out some blood, dyeing the ground red. This time, his injuries were extremely serious. Chu Feng was astonished. He had been holding back because he was worried that someone would die. But now, it seemed that he had been worrying too much. Even though he had attacked so heavily, his opponent had not been killed. Boom! Chu Feng stood on top of Zwajun. He stomped his foot hard on Zwajun. His strength was surprisingly strong. He felt that he had been too conservative earlier, and his opponent was able to withstand his heavy attack. Zwajun let out a muffled groan. His body was convulsing, but at the same time, it was also expanding violently. At the critical moment, his body shape changed drastically, and he withstood the blow. Even so, his entire body was in pain. His back felt as if it had exploded, leaving behind greenish-purple footprints. Moreover, blood continuously flowed from the corner of his mouth. With a loud boom, Zwajun flipped over and finally got rid of Chu Feng. He leaped into the air, causing the ground to tremble slightly. There was an earth-shattering momentum. Chu Feng gasped. Was Zwajun still a human? How could he change so much in such a short time? At that moment, Zwajun's body had undergone a drastic change. His height had increased from 1.7 meters to 2.8 meters. His clothes were torn and tattered, hanging on his body like strips of cloth. His naked body had turned brown, and there was a layer of yellow mist surrounding him. His body was very strong. His muscles were bulging and full of explosive power. How could a human body of flesh and blood change so much in such a short time? He weighed at least 500 or 600 kilograms. His muscles were like those of a horned dragon, flowing with luster, masculine, and strong. It was a strong visual impact. Obviously, he had an unimaginable explosive power. How could his muscles bulge in such a short time? What was the reason? Chu Feng couldn't understand it. Chu Feng, I admit that I misjudged you. But you shouldn't have challenged a mutant. Zhuo Jun's voice was deep and low, echoing in the yard like muffled thunder. Bang! When he took a step forward, the ground shook slightly. Obviously, he had great strength. Boom! Although he was big, his speed was not slow. With a single leap, he covered a distance of several meters. His palm was as big as a cattail leaf fan, and he swung it towards Chu Feng's head. If it was an ordinary person who was slapped by him, their entire head would probably be smashed and sent flying. Zhuo was really angry. He didn't care about the consequences. He just wanted to trample Chu Feng under his feet. The experience just now had made him feel extremely humiliated. He needed to vent and wash away the shame. Chu Feng only used 5 meters to cover 100 meters. His speed was extremely fast. He stepped sideways to avoid the huge palm and threw a punch at Zhuo waist. Because he didn't know how heavy his opponent's fist was, he didn't know how powerful it was. He dodged it first. Zhuo was very arrogant. He didn't dodge. He tightened his waist and took the punch head on. At the same time, he reached out his hand again to grab Chu Feng. He wanted to grab him in his hand. Chu Feng felt a slight numbness in his fists, while Zhuo staggered and took a few steps back. Chu Feng's fist felt like it had been struck by a drum. His face showed a hint of pain. He didn't expect that he could still feel pain in this form. How strong was that person? One had to know that he was currently in a special state, close to a mythical state. In ancient times, he would be considered a top-notch expert in martial arts. Moreover, he could continue to evolve. It would not be an exaggeration to call him a god in the future. These days, he was full of confidence. He felt that he had transcended the mortal world and entered the realm of divinity. He stood in a completely different world from ordinary people. In fact, he had been invincible in recent days. He had subdued a hungry tiger and killed a ferocious beast with his bare hands. He was invincible. Now, an ordinary person who hadn't mutated and was only in his normal state could block his attack. How could he not be surprised? Zhuo's pupils shrank and became colder. He couldn't let this person live. Even if he would be blamed later, he had to kill him. When he clenched his fists, a misty yellow gas rose from his body. It was similar to his khaki body, and a violent aura surged out. After a tentative punch, Chu Feng was sure that he could block his opponent's heavy punch. They were on the same level, so he didn't have to be afraid. Zhuo growled. His body seemed to have expanded by another half a foot. His palm slapped at Chu Feng with great force, like an unstoppable overlord. Such a huge body, and so ridiculously strong, it was like he belonged to another race. Chu Feng didn't flinch at all. Instead, he exerted his full strength. His strength was 12 times that of an ordinary person. Coupled with that terrifying speed, his fists were strong enough to crack a boulder. Bang, bang, bang. The two of them fought. Not only did Chu Feng dare to exchange blows with him, but he also used his superhuman speed to dash to his side and back to launch fierce attacks. At this time, Chu Feng didn't hold back at all. Bang! After several rounds of fighting, Chu Feng turned to Zhuo's back and punched him. The huge body was sent flying and crashed into the distance. In the flower bed, soil was splashed. The 3-meter-tall body fell down with great momentum. Die! Zhuo flew into a rage out of humiliation. His pupils turned cold and eventually turned pale gold, similar to his skin. His whole body swelled again, and his joints creaked. At the same time, a cloud of hazy mist appeared on his right arm. It looked like yellow soil. In an instant, his right arm enlarged a lot. Boom! He pounced at Chu Feng. His right arm was indeed special. It turned pale gold and was as big as a millstone. It was several times bigger than his left arm. It came crashing down just like that, covering Chu Feng's entire body. It was an extremely terrifying scene. The earthy yellow gas flowed, and a terrifying aura pervaded the air. Chu Feng was startled. While dodging, he tried to think of a way out. He hadn't mastered the fist technique taught by yellow cattle yet. In the end, he used the special breathing technique to adjust his own strength. In an instant, Chu Feng swung his fist. He felt that after using this special breathing technique, his body's strength had multiplied. He couldn't help but face the attack head-on. Pooh! Blood splattered everywhere. Shuhao's fist directly penetrated the millstone-sized palm. The scene was so shocking that even he himself was stunned. Ah! Zuojun screamed miserably. His face was pale as he staggered backwards. That palm was continuously bleeding. The joints in his body were making crackling sounds. His body was shrinking as if it was deflating. Not long after, he returned to his normal height. The earthy yellow gas around his body dispersed. His whole body was dispirited and listless. He fell to the ground and cried out in pain. Is this the power you have to look down on mortals? Nothing more than this. Chu Feng walked closer and looked down at him. Zuojun was terrified. He knew that his estimation was wrong. How could the man in front of him be immortal? Although he didn't show any signs of being a mutant, he was definitely terrifying. Zuojun's heart was pounding. He was afraid that Chu Feng would kill him. How many of you are there? What is your purpose in coming to Taiyang Mountains? Tell me everything you know, Chu Feng said calmly. Although he had guessed a few things, there were still many doubts that needed to be verified. He wanted to pry the answers out of the other party's mouth. Although Zuojun was terrified at first and feared that he would be killed, he was very strong-willed at the last moment. He kept his mouth shut and refused to say a word. Chu Feng didn't hold back at all. He landed a heavy punch on Zuojun's nose. Even the slightest injury on this part of the body was painful, let alone a punch like this. It was a sharp pain. Zuojun's vision darkened and his nose was sore. Snot, tears, and blood flowed out at the same time. He almost fainted. Still, he didn't say a word. He kept his mouth shut and bit his lips. Right at this moment, Yellow Ox peeked his head out from one of the rooms like a thief, then slowly made his way over to them. It was indeed obedient and had been hiding in the room. However, Chu Feng suspected that the reason why this guy was so obedient was because it wanted to watch the show. When the time came for it to hide, it would be hopeless. Chu Feng didn't want Yellow Cattle to be exposed. Therefore, he landed another 3 punches on Zuojun's nose and eyes. He paid attention to his strength. Zuojun screamed in pain and closed his eyes. So troublesome. Chu Feng felt a headache coming on. This guy was so stubborn that he would rather die than talk. How should he deal with him? It was hard for him to kill Zuojun directly. After all, he was a modern man. He had never experienced murder before. He couldn't get over the hurdle in his heart. But if he let Zuojun go, it would definitely cause a lot of trouble. And if he imprisons Zuojun, it might not be safe either. Zuojun was missing, and his companions would definitely be looking for him. After all, someone had asked them to take care of Chu Feng. If one day they came here and found Zuojun imprisoned, it would be more likely to cause a big problem. How to solve this problem? It would be great if he could forget what happened today. Chu Feng said to himself. Yellow Cattle heard what Chu Feng said. It slowly walked over and wrote 2 crooked characters on the ground. Simple. You have a solution? Chu Feng was surprised. Yellow Ox held its head high, its face full of arrogance. Then let's solve it quickly. Chu Feng was overjoyed and urged. Yellow Cattle slowly walked towards Zuojun. It looked at him for a while, and then suddenly stepped on Zuojun's head. Bang! Bang! It heavily stepped on Zuojun's head twice. Be gentle. It's going to crack. Chu Feng was shocked and hurried to stop it. He knew how strong this cow was. He didn't expect that it would step on Zuojun. Zuojun screamed and then fainted. Even though he was unconscious, he was still twitching, foaming at the mouth and shaking his head. What kind of solution is this? Chu Feng questioned. Yellow Cattle slowly wrote on the ground again. It was still crooked, but this time it wrote 3 words. Amnesia. Chapter 24. Chu Feng looked at Yellow Cattle with a strange look in his eyes. He had thought that this guy would use some strange tricks, and he was prepared to open his eyes. Who would have thought that it would turn out like this? Are you sure it's that simple? He was a little doubtful. Would such a crude and unskilled trick work? He always felt that Yellow Cattle was not reliable. Yellow Cattle was quite calm. It slowly wrote a few ugly words on the ground, The Great Way is simple. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. He was completely speechless. In the end, he really wanted to swear. You stomp your hooves twice. It was indeed simple, but could it be called the Great Way is simple? My head is crushed by the mountain. I am going to die. On the ground, Zhuijun was foaming at the mouth, talking nonsense. It was obvious how much damage the two hooves had done to him. His mind was in a mess. Even though he was unconscious, he was still screaming in pain. He felt that his head was crushed. Is he okay? Will there be any sequelae? If he doesn't wake up, it will be troublesome. Chu Feng was a little worried. Earlier, he was still questioning Yellow Cattle's methods, but now it seemed that he should be more worried about the extent of Zhuijun's injuries. Yellow Cattle did not know how to control his weight. Most importantly, it was not a good guy. He really did not know what kind of consequences the two hooves would bring. Just looking at Zhuijun's condition made Chu Feng feel a lot of pain. Although Zhuijun had fainted, he was lying on the ground, convulsing. He could not stop at all. Is this the legendary saying that evil men have their own evil cattle? Chu Feng mumbled. He rummaged through Zhuijun's body to see if there were any strange objects. Daggers and swords were made of alloy. Although they were extraordinary, they could not be compared to the black dagger. In addition, there were some miscellaneous things such as food. Finally, Chu Feng took out an animal skin map from Zhuijun's chest. It did not look old. It should have been drawn recently. Paper maps were easy to be damaged, and leather maps were easier to preserve. Especially Zhuijun, his body could instantly transform into a 3-meter-tall giant. He was surrounded by a yellow mist, which could easily damage the items on his body. After the bee skin was specially processed, the leather was very soft and neatly folded. When it was unfolded, it was actually very large, covering a large area of the ground. This was part of the topographic map of the Taiyang Mountains. Everything within a few hundred miles was marked out in great detail. Every mountain peak was clearly visible. There are some mountains that I have never seen before. Chu Feng's home was here, so he was naturally familiar with the Taiyang Mountains. He speculated that it must have been drawn recently, as it included the sudden appearance of those primitive mountains. His face lit up. This map was very useful to him. He looked carefully and found that there were special marks on the animal skin map. Some areas were painted with black skulls, and some mountains were annotated with the word harvest. In addition, some mountains were circled in red ink. There weren't many markings, but they were very eye-catching, and people would notice them at first glance. Needless to say, there was definitely something strange about those places. Leave behind the beast hide map? Chu Feng thought for a while, but eventually gave up. He took out a piece of paper and compared it to the animal skin drawing. He made a copy in a very short time. Let's get rid of this troublemaker as soon as possible. Chu Feng carried Zhuijun. He left the house and entered the orchard. This was the easternmost part of the town, so it was very convenient for people to pass by. With Chu Feng's current physical strength and speed, it was a piece of cake for him to carry Zhuijun. He ran for more than 20 miles in one breath, passed through the forest, and dropped Zhuijun on a broken asphalt road. Zhuijun was still in a coma. Chu Feng looked at the road again and again. There were wheat fields on both sides of the road. It was very far from the forest, so there couldn't be any wild animals. He turned around and left. The town was quiet because people were no longer panicking. In recent days, some young people had begun to look for a way out. They brought along knives and other items for self-defense and tried to move towards the county. They thought that the county and the provincial capital were more populated, so it might be safer. However, after some people successfully entered the county, they no longer thought so. There were two primitive mountains right next to the county. They were so tall that they reached the clouds. They were too close to the county. Vaguely, there were all kinds of ferocious birds and beasts on the mountains, such as a 2-meter-long silver centipede. It looked like a white snake, and all the other creatures avoided it. There were also some people who saw fiery red birds catching tigers and leopards as food. It was a bloody scene. There were also people who saw a spider the size of a house hanging between the two mountains. Suddenly, it spat out a web and pulled down a 10-meter-long giant bird from the sky. It was a bloody and brutal scene. There were many creatures that had never been seen before, but they all appeared on the mountains outside the county. How could people not be scared? Many people in the county had been running away recently, afraid that one day those monsters would come down from the mountains. As for the city and the provincial capital, it was said that the situation was not any better. It was even worse. It was as if the ancient times had come, and the land was covered with endless forests and ferocious beasts. After a round of exploration, the young people in Qinyang town were discouraged and returned to the county. During this period, many people were pragmatic. They were all from the older generation. They began to plant crops outside the town, hoping to be self-sufficient. There were originally fields, but now the area had increased by 10 times. Even though some of the land was still covered with forests, the planting area had become wider. It was already late autumn, but the leaves were not yellow, and the plants were not withered. It was still full of vitality. The weather was getting warmer, as if the early summer had arrived again. This formed a strange scene. For example, on the east side of Chu Feng's yard, some fruit trees were still bearing bright red fruits, while others were beginning to bloom. The fragrance of fruits and flowers mixed together. Some trees were full of fruits, while others were full of flower petals. It was very beautiful. Autumn had a special meaning to the people of this world, because there had been a war that almost destroyed the land. During that time, the land was barren, food was scarce, and people struggled bitterly. In the post-civilization era, everyone had to participate in the harvest of crops every autumn. Later, even when the harsh conditions changed and the people became prosperous again, it gradually became a habit. Autumn had a special meaning and became the biggest holiday. Therefore, there were many people in the town today, such as students and workers who had returned from other cities. Now, some people had begun to organize planting, so there was no shortage of labor. Chu Feng glanced at the cold storage room. The food that had been piled high was now almost empty, mainly because the yellow cattle could eat too much. Now that all the big stores have been emptied, resources are in short supply. I have to think of a way. Chu Feng decided to first practice boxing to ensure that he could safely enter and leave the mountains. This was because he wanted to hunt some wild animals. In this era where food and clothing were a big problem, there was nothing better than meat to replenish the body's needs. He practiced boxing in the yard, and the first style of the ox demon was gradually taking shape. He was finally about to master it. It was powerful and fierce, and occasionally there would be a thunderous sound. There was a layer of mysterious power covering the surface of his fist, and it could erupt with a terrifying force. Bang! Chu Feng tried and smashed the big blue stone outside the yard with a punch. Is this still a human palm? Chu Feng was stunned. The blue stone that was half a meter tall cracked and shattered. How terrifying was this kind of fist print? He carefully felt that this kind of power was not the so-called inner force in the novels. It was more like a thin layer of gauze that wrapped around the fist. At the same time, he found that if he combined it with a strange breathing technique, the power would multiply and become even more terrifying. Chu Feng vaguely guessed that the breathing technique must be very powerful and mysterious. It could even increase the power of an extraordinary boxing technique. No wonder the yellow cattle practiced it every morning and night. It was even more diligent than practicing the ox demon boxing. In the morning, the golden sun rose, shining brightly. Zuojun felt a sharp pain in his head. He slowly regained consciousness. He shook his head slightly, and it felt like his brain was about to spill out. Where am I? He staggered and struggled to get up. His face was pale, and his eyes were lifeless. He was very confused, and he could not figure out what was going on. He looked down at his tattered clothes. Had he been through a battle? After a long time, he gradually remembered something. He said to himself, the one from the Mu family hinted that if I passed by Qingyang town, I could teach that mortal a lesson instead of taking care of him. So Jun thought back. He should have gone to Qingyang town. How could he have fainted here? He could not remember anything. He felt as if his mind had been interrupted. His memory was blurred, and he could not recall what happened after that. Was I ambushed when I came here? He wondered. Finally, he staggered towards the direction of Qingyang town. He sneered as he walked. He is just a mortal. Even if his condition is not good, I can still easily deal with him. The sun was bright and warm. Shu Feng's breathing rhythm was very special. He breathed in and out the morning glow. After a long time, he finally completed the breathing technique for the day. As soon as he stood up, he saw the swaying Zhuojun. He was holding onto the door and walking towards him. Shu Feng was stunned. Why was he here again? The first thing he thought of was that the yellow cattle was not reliable. He did not make this guy lose his memory, and now he was here for revenge. Bull demon, look at what you have done. Shu Feng shouted. You are just a mortal. Don't make a fuss in front of me. You are so noisy. Zhuojun said impatiently. He was more direct than yesterday. He did not try to hide it. He was very impolite. His head was hurting too much. Shu Feng was surprised. You really can't change your nature. Have you forgotten your lesson? You know me? Zhuojun was suspicious, but soon his face darkened. No matter what, you have to suffer. There are some people that you can never reach. Even the people around her can easily crush you. Shu Feng's expression was strange. He was sure that Zhuojun had lost his memory, but he still remembered some things from a long time ago. For example, he came here to cause trouble. This was really troublesome. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. My head hurts. What happened? Who ambushed me on the way here? Zhuojun rubbed his forehead. He was puzzled and angry. This was also the reason why he was so anxious today. I feel like I was kicked by a donkey. My head hurts, he said to himself. Shu Feng wanted to laugh when he heard this. You were indeed kicked by a donkey. Yellow Cow happened to come out of the room. It heard and saw what was going on. Its face darkened. Zhuojun did not notice Yellow Cow. He sneered and staggered towards Shu Feng. He was about to attack. Bang! Shu Feng kicked him sideways and sent him flying. He crashed into the wall. Then he turned around and asked Yellow Cow, What do you think we should do? He still remembered to come here. Slowly, Yellow Ox pointed its hoof at the word easy that had yet to be erased from the ground. Then it walked towards Zhuojun. Zhuojun was a little dazed. His head was spinning. How could he be sent flying by a mere mortal's kick? At this time, he saw a golden calf with a look of disdain on its face. It was laughing at him as it slowly walked toward him. What was going on? Was this an illusion? He felt it was unreal. A cow was looking at him with disdain, and it looked so strange. Was this a dream? Clang, 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 clang. This time, Yellow Cow was as brutal as ever. It stomped on Zhuojun's head 4 times, 2 more than last time. Then, with the appearance of an enlightened expert, it slowly turned around, and as steady as a mountain, it slowly walked away. Zhuojun's face was filled with shock as he stood there frozen. At the last moment, he could not believe what he had just seen. However, he could only roll his eyes and slowly collapse to the ground. Then, he kicked his legs, twitched, and fainted. It's done like this again. Will it work this time? Shu Feng was worried. If he threw Zhuojun away again, would Zhuojun come to him again? Yellow Ox stretched out its hoof twice in succession. It meant that it was guaranteed that it would be fine this time with 2 more hooves. Shu Feng did not speak for a long time. In the end, he could not help but blurt out, Can't you use another method? Yellow Cow did not make a sound. It pointed at the 4 words on the ground. They were also left yesterday. The words were ugly. It read, The Great Way is simple. Chapter 25. Shu Feng walked around Zhuojun. He could feel that Zhuojun's head had grown bigger and swollen. He must have lost all his memories after being kicked 6 times. Don't come looking for me again. Why bother? Shu Feng shook his head. However, he pondered that if Zhuojun really came again, he might not be able to keep his head. What was this nonsense about simplicity? If Zhuojun was kicked by the Yellow Ox again, he would probably turn into a rotten watermelon. Shu Feng checked Zhuojun's body from head to toe, especially his communicator, to see if there were any new calls. Unfortunately, it was still blank. Shu Feng guessed that Zhuojun would probably delete all traces after contacting someone. This time, he carried Zhuojun and ran for 30 to 40 miles. He left him on the broken road leading to the county town and returned. The town had regained its vitality. Every day, many people went to the fields to work. Now, many crops have been sown. According to some old people, this kind of climate was the most suitable for the growth of crops. If there were no accidents, the crops would mature in a few months. It might be a bumper harvest. Therefore, the smile of the people in the town increased. Suddenly, there was a commotion on the street. Many people were carrying a young man. His body was boiling hot, and white steam was rising from his body. He was screaming and struggling in pain. "Quick, send him to Dr. Wong," someone shouted anxiously. A group of strong young men carried the man and rushed to the most famous clinic in the town. When Chu Feng returned, he saw this scene. He quickly followed them to see if there was anything he could do to help. "Wong Pan, my son, what happened to you?" The young man's mother rushed to him. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She was really scared. The young man named Wong Pan's face was distorted. He kept rolling on the ground. A few adults could barely hold him down. His body was boiling hot, and white steam was rising from his body. Chu Feng was shocked when he saw this. He fell into deep thought. Sister-in-law, Wong Pan ate a fruit in the field and became like this. A middle-aged man beside her said, "Recently, many people in the town have been planting and using the fields. Wong Pan's family also had a plot of land. Today, he was working with the others to cultivate the land. When he was resting, he smelled a fragrance and found a silver fruit in the grass in the distance. That stalk of grass was very common, but it bore a shiny silver fruit. At that time, Wong Pan was very thirsty. Smelling the enticing aroma of the fruit, he couldn't help but eat it. However, not long after, he began to roll on the ground in pain. Everyone talked at once, talking about all these things. Wong Pan's mother immediately burst into tears. Her face was full of tears. She was extremely afraid that her son would die. "Why are you crying? The child isn't dead yet," Wong Pan's father said angrily. With the help of a few people, they finally sent Wong Pan to the clinic. Right now, emergency treatment was the most important thing. Wong Pan's strength was getting stronger and stronger, and he was about to break free. In the end, Chu Feng stepped forward to help and finally stopped him from moving. Dr. Wong carefully observed Wong Pan and performed a comprehensive examination with the help of equipment. His vital signs are very chaotic. Some of his hormones are skyrocketing. His condition is not good. I have never seen a patient like this. Dr. Wong was sweating profusely. He was at a loss of what to do. This child must have been harmed by the rumors. He must have believed the news. Someone ate a fruit and turned into a silver wing. I think it's all nonsense. An old man said, "Yes, although there are many strange things happening recently. Some of them are too absurd to believe." Another middle-aged man nodded. Chu Feng did not say anything. He just quietly listened to the conversation. He was observing the young man on the bed. Only he knew that if there was no accident, Wong Pan would become a mutant. Although Dr. Wong's medical skills were superb and famous, there was nothing he could do to save Wong Pan. He told Wong Pan's parents that he had no clue and could only observe for now. Wong Pan's father's face was ashen, and his mother began to cry again. She was scared. On this day, the townspeople were telling their children that if they saw those exotic wild fruits, they must not eat them. Otherwise, what happened to Wong Pan might happen again. Chu Feng did not go home. He stayed with Dr. Wong to watch over Wong Pan. Since he was held down by Chu Feng, Wong Pan gradually fell asleep. He no longer struggled, but his body was still trembling. White mist rose from his body. It was a little scary. Wong Pan's parents were not sleepy. Their eyes were swollen from crying. When dawn broke, Wong Pan, who was tied to the bed, finally woke up. He let out a painful cry and tried to break free. Chu Feng was awakened and quickly went forward to hold him down. "It hurts!" Wong Pan screamed. Chu Feng watched Wong Pan's abdomen bulge, and then there was a cracking sound. It sounded like the joints were extending, which made people's hair stand on end. During this process, a hazy white mist wrapped around him. Obviously, Wong Pan's body had undergone a drastic change. In the end, he wailed and roared in pain, alarming everyone nearby. Many people in the town rushed to the scene. Half an hour later, Wong Pan calmed down. The white mist dissipated. Everyone was stunned as if they had seen a ghost. Wong Pan's abdomen had a pair of silver-white arms, which looked very powerful. Ah, Wang Pan, what's wrong with you? Are you still not feeling well? His mother screamed and rushed to him. Wang Pan's face was pale and a little weak. He told his mother that he was fine, but he felt very hungry. You're still saying that you're fine. Look, you have a pair of arms. Wang Pan's mother cried again. Her son had become a monster, which made her very sad. Many people in the town heard the news and flocked to the clinic. It was so crowded that not even a drop of water could pass through. Quick, prepare some food. Wang Pan's father shouted. He asked his relatives and neighbors to help bring some food. Could it be that those reports are true? Look, Wang Pan has really changed. Someone whispered. Now, Wang Pan had completely changed. He was originally a little fat, but now he was very thin. He had a pair of arms, and his skin had changed from dark to fair. In the end, Wang Pan ate a lot of meat and bowl after bowl of rice. He finally filled his stomach and no longer felt hungry and weak. During the process of eating, his two silver-white arms were also moving, constantly filling his mouth with food. People were amazed. Finally, Wang Pan walked out of the courtyard and waved his silver-white arms. He felt the changes in his body, and his heart was a little heavy. After all, he had become a little like a monster. Bang! He angrily punched, and the result shocked many people to the point that their eyes almost popped out. In the courtyard of the clinic, there was a landscape stone. As a result, it was cracked by his strong punch, and the cracks were very deep and long. It was estimated that the stone would fall apart after 2 more blows. Oh my God, how much power is this? People cried out in surprise. The report is true. Those strange fruits can really mutate people. This is simply superhuman. Some young people were extremely envious. On this day, many people in the town went out to look for all kinds of wild fruits in the grass of the fields and outside the forest. They were mainly young people. They seemed to have seen a mysterious door. Many people wanted to get close to it and step into that door. 2 days later, Wang Pan's body had stabilized. He went to the clinic for a checkup, and there were many abnormalities in his body. In particular, his arms were very hard, and ordinary knives couldn't cut them. They were very powerful, comparable to the strength of several adults combined. Wang Pan had completely lost weight from being slightly fat, and his skin had also turned silver. According to Dr. Wang's speculation, his mutation might continue. My son has extraordinary power. According to the report, he might become a god in the future. Wang Pan's mother told everyone she met. She was afraid that people would say that her son was a monster and that he would not be able to find a girlfriend in the future. In fact, many people were envious. Even some adults were also trying to find strange fruits outside the town when they went out. In these 2 days, apart from practicing the special breathing technique and boxing, Chu Feng used his communicator to search for all kinds of news about those strange fruits. In the last few days, all kinds of news about the strange fruits had appeared on the internet. That was because it wasn't just 1 or 2 people who mutated, but many people from all over the world. After another day, Chu Feng searched for the news again and found that the number of people had increased. Many towns had appeared one after another. And in places that were slightly larger, there would always be 1 or 2 people who mutated. Someone estimated that the number of people who mutated had exceeded 10,000. This was a shocking number, and it was only the number that was known. It could be imagined that if those who hadn't been reported were included, it might be several times more. The internet was boiling over. Could it be that a mysterious era was really coming? The mutated people all had supernatural abilities. Some could fly in the sky and dig into the ground. Some could melt metal, and some could survive in magma. The whole world was talking about it, and it was a scene of jubilation. People felt that a great era was about to begin. Some people's abilities were comparable to the creatures of the mythological era, which was really scary. No matter how one looked at it, it gave people the impression that the number of mutated people was increasing. Many of them had supernatural abilities, like the reappearance of God. It could be said that the world was unprecedentedly prosperous. At night, a report appeared. Some mutated people went to the celestial biology group to challenge Silverwing. However, the result was horrifying. Those mutants joined hands, but they were still defeated by Silverwing. They couldn't even withstand a single strike from him. This result shocked the world, and it shocked every corner of the world. The originally restless mutants gradually calmed down. Although they were all mutated, there was still a big gap between their strength. Those who had awakened the earliest seemed to be especially powerful. Later, another report said that Kong Kim had single-handedly defeated a group of mutants and defeated dozens of them. This caused a huge sensation again. At this point, people understood that the first few mutants who had awakened the earliest were Silverwing, Kong Kim, Fire Spirit, and White Tiger. Their status was unshakable, as if they were standing at the top of the pyramid. There were rumors saying that behind them, there was a mysterious force that provided them with all kinds of resources, including all kinds of strange fruits, which made them stronger and stronger. After reading these reports, Chu Feng was lost in thought. What would the future hold? He hadn't mutated, and he hadn't obtained any strange fruits. At present, he was only practicing that special breathing technique and practicing boxing silently. He didn't care about those things anymore. He just needed to slowly become stronger. When he mastered the demon ox boxing style, he would go to Mount Taihang and see if there was anything he could find. Suddenly, his communicator rang. Someone was looking for him. Linoy. Chapter 26. Linoy's voice was calm. It was a polite greeting, but there was a sense of distance in it that made people feel distant. Chu Feng's words were calm and considerate. He greeted her politely and even smiled at the end, saying that she was still as beautiful as ever. Although they had not been apart for a long time, Chu Feng felt as if time had passed. It was as if some scenes from the past had overlapped with each other. Lin Ruoyi was calm, rational, and intelligent. She did not do it deliberately in school, but she naturally gave people the feeling of a goddess, making people feel that she was out of reach. Perhaps it was because she was too beautiful, or perhaps it was because she had a cold temperament, but people always lacked confidence in front of her. Although many people wanted to pursue her, they all had stage fright in the end. It was an accident that Chu Feng knew her at first. Although his results were good, it was not related to hard work. It was common for him to skip classes. For all kinds of public classes that required attendance, he mostly entered the classroom on time. It was conceivable that when he entered the classroom would already be full. Every time, he would need to spend a certain amount of time to find a seat in the last row. Once, he realized that the last row was already full. He looked around and saw an empty seat in the middle by the window. He strode over. This row was mostly made up of girls. They were all good-looking and pleasing to the eye. However, there was a piece of paper on the only empty table. The name Linoy was written on it. It was obvious that the seat had been taken. It should have been reserved by a girl in the same dormitory. Chu Feng didn't care. Under the astonished gazes of the girls, he sat down peacefully. Then, he folded the paper with Lin Naoi's name on it into the shape of an airplane. With a light flick, he let it fly out of the window. The girls were stunned. Their eyes were filled with surprise. This was something that had never happened before. Someone actually did this to Linoy and snatched her seat. Soon, Chu Feng realized who Linoy was. However, after thinking about it, he did not stand up. At the same time, a long-haired girl walked over. She was extremely stunning. She was 170 centimeters tall and had a slender figure. Her hair was as smooth as silk, and she had an oval face. Her eyes were extremely spirited and beautiful, as if they could see through one's heart. It could be said that she was very beautiful, but she was too cold. She stood in front of Chu Feng and looked at him calmly, without saying a word. The surrounding girls followed suit and exerted pressure on Chu Feng. At the same time, they glared at him, telling him to leave. But Chu Feng didn't get up. He was calm and collected, and he sat there with a clear conscience. After looking at Linoy, he began to flip through the book in his hand. Linoy stood there calmly for a moment. Without saying a word, she turned around and left. It wasn't a very good process of getting to know each other, but they did get to know each other. After that, they gradually got to know each other more. Strictly speaking, their relationship as a couple had always been very indifferent. The number of times they walked side by side wasn't considered many. Once, when Chu Feng went to hold her slender, beautiful, and fair hand, Linoy directly turned around and looked at him for a very long time. If it were someone else, they might have felt guilty and let go. But Chu Feng could be said to be the result of his personality, and it could also be said that he was thick-skinned. He naturally held her hand, smiled, and did not let go. In the end, Linoy tilted her head and did not refuse him again. She let him hold her hand. It was also because of that time that people felt that they were a real couple. That day, many people saw many boys wailing and cursing Chu Feng for being shameless. But he succeeded. However, that was all. Linoy always gave people the feeling that she was cold and elegant. Even Chu Feng felt that she was deliberately keeping a distance from him. Once, when he had just placed his hand on her shoulder, she calmly looked at him, then glared at him and turned to leave. At that time, Chu Feng laughed behind her, saying that she was too goddess-like. If it were someone else, they would definitely be suppressed by her temperament and not be able to interact as an equal. Chu Feng thought about it for a short while and quickly came back to his senses. On the other end of the communicator, Linoy's voice was magnetic. It was very pleasant to listen to, but it was a little flat and a little cold. In the end, Linoy asked him if he needed help. At that moment, he indeed felt a kind of distance. After they separated, the calm relationship between the two seemed to have become even more distant. Chu Feng frowned. He did not need help. However, he thought of his parents. The world had changed. There were frequent anomalies, and everywhere was no longer peaceful. It might be very dangerous. Who knew if something big would happen one day? As a member of the celestial biology group, Linoy knew far more than others. Moreover, her family background had the corresponding strength. Chu Feng thought for a moment and said, "My parents are in Shuntian, that huge city in the north. If possible, I hope you can take care of them." He knew that Celestial Biology Group had the strength to do that. Chu Feng was straightforward when he needed to be. He was never pretentious, and he did not feel embarrassed because of the breakup. When it came to the safety of his parents, he was very frank and frank. However, he also mentioned that he did not want any accidents to happen because of that kind of care. He knew that Linoy was a very intelligent woman. Even if he mentioned it casually, she would be able to understand it. Linoy listened calmly. In the end, she only said 2 words, "Sure." Chu Feng did not say anything else. There was a sense of alienation. He felt that it was time to end the call. But in the end, Linoy said again, "I have something to do in the north of Taiyang Mountains in a few days." Chu Feng laughed. He had never been overwhelmed by her cold elegance. He could not help but tease. "I have always told you that you owe me a hug. Are you going to make it up to me this time?" Snap! The other end of the communicator hung up. The call ended. In the county, Zwejun opened his eyes. He felt like his head was about to split open when he moved a little. Double shadows appeared in front of his eyes. It was very uncomfortable. "He finally woke up," someone said with a sigh of relief. Zwejun sat up on the bed and groaned in pain. He quickly held his head and opened his eyes after a long time. His brain was buzzing, and his thoughts were in a mess. "Zwejun, what happened?" Zwejun looked up and saw a young woman in front of him. She had a beautiful face and fine black hair. She was smiling. "Zhu Qingyu." He called out the woman's name. She was one of the 2 most powerful people in their team. Regardless of whether she was happy or angry, there was always a smile on her face. "Do you know that you have been unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights? What happened to you?" asked another man in the room. He looked to be about 25 or 26 years old. His skin was fair, and his eyes were narrow and full of spirit. He looked like a shrewd person. Yiko. Zwejun recognized him. The 2 most powerful people in the team were both here. Yigu and Zhu Qingyu were the leaders of this team. There were a few other people in the room. Some had azure wings on their backs, some had 2 heads, and some had golden fingers. The room was full of mutants. They looked at Zwejun, waiting for him to speak. "I don't know what happened." Zwejun tried to recall, but his head hurt so much that he could not remember anything. "Didn't we come to Taiyang Mountains to look for those mysterious fruits? I can only remember up to this point. The rest is a mess," Zwejun said. Cold sweat was dripping down his face. Just a little bit of thinking was enough to make him look like he was in pain. Everyone was shocked to find that he had lost his memory. He had lost the memory of a recent period. What he was talking about was something that happened not long ago. You must have met a master. You were defeated even in the form of a giant. You suffered a severe head injury and lost your memory, said Yiga. His narrow eyes were flowing with purple light. He further speculated, I think it was a human. If it was a ferocious beast, you would have become its food. Zhuojun, did you go and stir up trouble again? Zhu Qingyu asked. She had a faint smile on her face. She said, after becoming a mutant, you have been too full of yourself lately. You always think that no one in the world can suppress you, don't you? I did not. Zhuojun refuted. You are still denying it? Not only you, but also you. Don't think that I don't know that you have been going in and out of the big cities recently. You always think that you are above everyone else, doing whatever you want and looking down on ordinary people. Zhu Qingyu's voice was cold. She glanced at everyone and said, after awakening, you have gained unimaginable power in a short period of time. You have lost your mind. Qingyu is right. There are more and more people who have awakened. Don't always think that you are invincible. After all, you're not gods. Yiga said, we are the first ones to awaken. If anyone can become a god, it will be among us. Someone was not convinced. Shut up. Zhu Qingyu scolded. Yiga said, behave well these days. Soon, there will be an important person coming. Silverwing? Someone asked. Mind your own business. Don't worry about these things. Zhuojun, on the other hand, is not a weakling. He is very strong. How could he be beaten so badly that he lost his memory? Yigu said with a frown. In Xingyang town, Chu Feng had finished his boxing practice. He noticed a layer of green in the flower bed. Recently, the weather had changed. All kinds of plants had grown crazily. There was a lot of grass in the yard. How are the seeds I planted? He asked. In the beginning, he would go to the garden several times a day to check on the 3 mysterious seeds. He always hoped that the 3 seeds would germinate and grow soon. However, there had been no movement for many days, so he was not as diligent. Especially in the last few days, with all kinds of things happening, he had forgotten about the 3 seeds. Looking at the time, the seeds should have germinated by now, right? Chu Feng walked quickly to the garden expectantly. Chapter 27. The soil in the flower bed could not be said to be fertile, but it was enough to grow flowers and grass. The crabapple, canna, and Chinese roses were growing very well, and the fragrance of the flowers was rich and refreshing. On the pomegranate tree, the fruit was golden and had long matured. After splitting open, a bright red seed was revealed. Chu Feng squatted there, and in the end, he was almost lying on the soil. He looked carefully again and again, but the ground was still bare, and there were no buds emerging. He was very disappointed. Why hadn't they taken root? That day, for the sake of safety, he buried the 3 seeds in 3 different areas, but there was no movement until now. Not even weeds had grown in the soil. Chu Feng was very helpless. Could it be that the 3 seeds had really dried up and could not be planted? However, he always felt that the 3 seeds were not so simple. They had been buried at the foot of Mount Kunlun for countless years and preserved in a stone box. This was very mysterious. He was somewhat unwilling. Even if one of the seeds could germinate, it would be good to see what would grow. A few days ago, he had been looking up all kinds of plant seeds on the internet, comparing them one by one. There were many kinds, but in the end, he could not match the 3 seeds at all. This deepened his expectations, and he believed that the 3 seeds were not ordinary things. Crunch! Yellow cattle walked over, raised its head, and bit a golden pomegranate in its mouth. Immediately, its mouth was full of red juice. It squinted its eyes, looking like it was enjoying it very much. Bull demon, be careful when you enter the flower bed. Don't step on my seeds. Chu Feng warned. Yellow cattle heard this and revealed a look of disdain. It did not believe that the 3 wrinkled seeds could come alive. It opened its mouth wide and chewed the pomegranate, its mouth full of sweetness. Chu Feng frowned, feeling really worried. He really wanted them to break out of the soil, but there was no movement. In the end, he decided to carefully dig to see what was going on. Otherwise, he would always feel like 100 claws were scratching his heart, and he especially wanted to know the result. Let's choose the seed that is more plump. Chu Feng squatted there, carefully brushing away the wet soil. He did not dare to move too much, and if it was germinating, it was very likely that it would break. A slightly wrinkled seed was exposed, half buried in the soil. Although it had not sprouted, its color seemed to have gained some green vitality. There's hope. Chu Feng was overjoyed. He observed carefully and found that the folds on the seed seemed to be smoother and had traces of green. The pattern was very complicated and mysterious. The seeds were not the same as before. Previously, this seed was completely withered and yellow, but now it was actually twined with a few green stripes, carrying a strange charm. Chu Feng was surprised. The more he looked at the seed, the more extraordinary it seemed. He let out a long sigh of relief. Although it was a little slow, he believed that it would break out of the ground sooner or later. Finally, he hesitated for a while. Should he add some fertile soil to the seed to accelerate its growth? Chu Feng stared at Yellow Cattle and said with a fake smile, little yellow, even if you don't want to, you still have to help me. Otherwise, there's nothing I can do." Yellow Cattle shuddered and took a few steps back. It stared at Chu Feng with a pair of vigilant eyes, as if to say, "If you have something to say, just say it. Don't be so mushy. I will only say the important things once." Cow dung. Clang. Yellow Cattle's hoof came flying at Chu Feng, forcing him to dodge quickly. With a swoosh, it ran back to its room and slammed the door shut. Ever since it came to this place, it not only occupied a room, but it also occupied the bed. Every day, it would lay on the bed and sleep without caring about its image. Chu Feng was resentful, but there was nothing he could do. After planting the seed, he began to practice boxing again, because he felt a sense of urgency. The number of mutants was increasing, and they all had their own extraordinary abilities. If the world was going to change in the future, he must have the means to protect himself. At the same time, he also wanted to go to Mount Taihang to try his luck. But the premise was that he had to be strong enough to cross the mountains without being killed by the sudden appearance of ferocious birds and monsters. It was still the first style of the Ox Demon. Chu Feng practiced it over and over again. His fists whistled through the air, causing the fallen leaves in the yard to dance in the air. A few days ago, he was already on the verge of mastering the first style. Now, a special feeling emerged in his heart, driving a strange power to cover the surface of his fist. Moo! Suddenly, as he swung his fist, the roar of a wild ox was heard. The wind howled, and the thunder was deafening. The yard was shaking. Bang! Yellow Cattle was startled. It rushed out of the room and stared at the yard with its eyes wide open. Behind Chu Feng, there was a pitch-black wild ox. It was tall and strong. Its eyes were wide open, and its entire body was flowing with black light. It looked no different from the real thing. It carried an astonishing aura, as if it had crossed over from the ancient times and appeared in this world. All of this was because of the punch that Chu Feng threw out. The dark and tall demon ox appeared behind him, as if it was going to follow the punch. Chu Feng knew that this was the ultimate form of the demon ox fist. He had completely mastered the first style. This was the foundation, the most solid foundation of the demon ox fist. The 9 styles of the demon ox were all built on this first style. This style was the most difficult to master. As long as the first style was mastered, the rest would be quick. Sure enough, in the next 2 days, Chu Feng practiced up to the 5th style in one go. He succeeded in all of them, and his speed increased. Yellow Cattle's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It had a strange expression on its face for the past 2 days. Once again, it wrote crooked words and asked Chu Feng if his ancestor was a minotaur. Chu Feng was furious. That day, he decisively threw 2 pieces of steak into the pork chops he prepared for Yellow Cattle. "Brother, long time no see. I really missed you. How have you been?" Zhou Quan called Chu Feng. "I'm fine. I was just about to ask you how you've changed. Recently, Everyone has been talking about mutants. Is your body okay? Chu Feng asked with concern. I can melt metal and melt rocks now. I scare myself quite a bit, but I've finally gotten used to it. However, I have horns on my head. It's really ugly. Zhou Quan was extremely resentful. Recently, he combed his hair back and wanted to hide his horns. In the end, his family said that the exaggerated hairstyle made him look like a big ruffian. It made him very depressed. Chu Feng let out a hearty laugh. Fatso Zhou's resentment grew even greater. Oh, right. It's strange. These 2 days, Bull Demon actually didn't harass me. It's been so quiet all day long. I'm a bit not used to it, Zhou Quan said. Chu Feng was speechless. A while ago, Yellow Cattle would madly poke the communicator and harass Fatso Zhou as long as it was free. It tortured him to the point that he almost broke down. These 2 days, he was a little better, and he was still not used to it. Suddenly, Chu Feng seemed to think of something. He showed a surprised expression and said, No, these 2 days, I clearly saw it holding the communicator. From time to time, it would madly poke a few times, and then it would moon nonstop. It was obviously talking to someone. Impossible. These 2 days, it's been very quiet here. No one has harassed me in the middle of the night. I can't actually sleep. Zhou Quan insisted that Yellow Cattle did not talk to him. When Chu Feng heard this, his expression immediately changed, and he immediately ended the call. If this bull didn't harass Fatso Zhou, then it was really unimaginable. Could it be that it was provoking his classmates? Chu Feng felt that his vision was a little dark. Could it be that this damn bull was getting smarter and had secretly remembered those contacts? He felt white smoke coming out of the top of his head. At the same time, he felt a little uneasy. He directly rushed into Yellow Cattle's room and shouted, Bull Demon, I'll fight it out with you. Chu Feng rushed into the room and pressed down on the calf, who was sprawled on the floor with his back against the wall. Yellow Cattle felt that it was inexplicable. It stared at him angrily with its eyes wide open. Did you harass the people I know again? Chu Feng's face was dark. Yellow Cattle decisively shook its head and then stretched out a hoof to poke the screen. Chu Feng was suspicious. He took the communicator and quickly looked through it. He let out a long breath. What he was worried about did not happen. However, he was a little suspicious. Who did this strange contact number belong to? Which unlucky guy was targeted by this bull? In a house in the county town, Zuijun was on the verge of collapse. Ever since he woke up, he had been receiving calls from the same person, no matter day or night. It was endless. Sometimes it was in the evening, sometimes it was in the middle of the night, and sometimes it was in the early morning. Every time, he was in so much pain that he wanted to die. This kind of harassment was too abominable. His head had just been hit by the hoof 6 times, and he had lost his memory not long ago. His head was still in pain, and he had been sleeping all day. In the end, he met such an outrageous person who kept harassing him. Every time he fell asleep, he would be woken up by the nightmarish ringtone. He didn't dare to turn off the communicator, because as a mutant, this was the only way he could contact his superiors and his friends in Tying Mountain. The most hateful thing was that the person who kept harassing him would always moo like a bull. Hearing it, Zuijun gritted his teeth and wished he could strangle the person. His head was in so much pain that it felt like he was kicked by a bull. But now, he kept hearing the cow moo, and it felt like he was being kicked by a bull. His head was getting more and more painful. Sometimes, when he was anxious, he really wanted to smash the communicator. However, this was a special communicator. Although its function was simple, it was very powerful. It ensured that there would be a signal no matter where he was. Moreover, it was linked to his identity. In Chu Feng's house in Qingyang Town, Yellow Cattle signaled Chu Feng to put the communicator on the bed. Then, it poked the communicator a few times. It seemed to be very experienced. When the call was successful, it decisively left. Sure enough, a deafening roar came from the communicator. Bastard, don't let me catch you. A hashtag yen%yen. The person on the other end was cursing and swearing. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. Finally, he knew who the victim was. Zuijun. One unlucky guy. He was targeted by Yellow Cattle. Chu Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That day, when he searched Zuijun, Yellow Cattle was also there. It had fiddled with Zhui Jun's communicator. It turned out that it was trying to remember Zhui Jun's contact information. This was not the simplest Dao. It was the Dao that was boundless and endless. Chu Feng held back his laughter and left the room. Yellow Cattle was the only one left. It was fiddling with the communicator with great interest. From time to time, it would let out a few moos as if it was responding to Zhui Jun. That night, Chu Feng kept practicing. He had mastered the 6th and 7th styles of the demon ox boxing style in one go. He stood at the door and grabbed a palm-sized hardstone. With a light hit, the stone turned into powder and scattered on the ground. Chu Feng was shaken. He lowered his head and looked at his own palms. Just how much power did he have? The progress of the demon ox boxing style was too fast. Chu Feng had some doubts. He had asked Yellow Cattle about it, but had written some words to tell him. Some people could practice this kind of fist technique for a lifetime without succeeding. They couldn't even pass the first stage. Some people could master a few styles in 10 days to half a month. Of course, it was just the beginning. The profound meaning contained in it needed to be gradually understood. If this goes on, I will master it soon. Chu Feng said to himself. He didn't continue practicing at night for the sake of speed. He thought it was better to be more natural. Chu Feng took a shower and began to search for related news on the internet. The number of mutants had increased again. At the same time, some of the more powerful figures were gradually becoming known. Chu Feng read the news carefully. Then, he was attracted by the latest news. Someone claimed that a rare tree had been found in Mount Taiyang. Many mutants had rushed to the place, waiting for the fruit to ripen. This news caused a great stir, because, according to the rumor, almost all the mutants had mutated because they ate the strange fruits of the grasses. Only Silver Wing, Kong Kim, Fire Spirit, and White Tiger were different. They had eaten the fruits of the strange trees. That was why they were so powerful. Therefore, when this news came out, people were shocked. All parties were ready to make a move. This meant that a super strong man could be created, one who could suppress all the other mutants in the world. For a moment, Mount Taiyang was the focus of attention from all parties. Chapter 28. Taiyang Mountains will soon be in turmoil. Chu Feng murmured to himself as he looked out of the window. The night sky was vast and boundless. Occasionally, he could see a shooting star streaking across the sky. There were bound to be mutants coming. The fruit of the rare tree could create masters like Silver Wing, Kong Kim, Fire Spirit, and White Tiger. How could people not be tempted? Powerful mutants would arrive as long as they could make it in time. Some mutants might make a name for themselves here, but some might vanish like the shooting star in the night sky and perish in the mountains. No matter what, Taiyang Mountains was about to be in turmoil. Did Linoy come for this too? Chu Feng frowned. In the near future, this area was destined to be in turmoil, and the mountains would be very dangerous. He knew that celestial biology was a behemoth, and now it had Silver Wing. Rumor had it that all the mutants who came to challenge it were defeated by a single attack from its wings. No one could stop it. Inside a house in the county town, Yi's face was dark. His eyes were glowing with purple light. Not long ago, he was questioned by his superiors about how the news of the precious tree in Taiyang Mountains had been leaked out so quickly. Zhu Qingyu's expression was not so good either. The smile on her face had disappeared. She was also one of the leaders of the team, and she was questioned as well. It could be said that celestial biology had been paying attention to Taiyang Mountains for a long time. They had sent people to search for the tree, and they were the first to discover it. Who would have thought that the news would leak out and spread to the outside world? As a result, everyone knew that a large number of mutants would arrive soon. If they waited for the fruit to ripen, there would be a lot of fighting. His superiors were furious. Zhui Jun lowered his head and held the communicator tightly, staring at the screen. He hated that person to the core. As soon as the screen lit up, he would pick up the call and curse at him. Zhui Jun, what are you daydreaming about? Yiga shouted. He was usually calm, but now he was obviously angry. You were severely injured. Could it be that you leaked the news before you lost your memory? Zhui Jun was stunned. Then his face turned pale. He shook his head quickly. He would not accept this kind of thing even if he died. That's impossible. How can I be a spineless coward? I fought with my life on the line until I lost my memory. Zwajun was agitated. He stood up and roared as he tried to defend himself. It's impossible for the few of us to leak the news. Could it be the other two teams? A mutant said. Although these teams were all affiliated with celestial biology, they were also competitors with each other. The two teams later learned of the location of the small tree. It could be other forces such as Bodhi biogenetics. They have been spotted in Tying Mountain for the past 2 days, Qingyu Zhu said. Bodhi biogenetics also specialized in biomedicine and had always been at the forefront of the industry, just like celestial biology. When it first started, it was a little mysterious. It was said that when it was first established, they invited many top experts in the field of biomedicine and a few centenarian monks. With the help of the most advanced equipment, they conducted various examinations on the old monk. After that, Bodhi biogenetics gradually expanded and became more and more famous in the post-civilization era, becoming a super financial group. This area of Tying Mountain is already occupied by us. Why are they still trying to stir up trouble? A mutant complained. Maybe they are aware that we have already taken the initiative here. That's why they want to stir up trouble, Qingyu Zhu said. The mutants frowned. Bodhi biogenetics was not a force to be reckoned with. They were not lacking in masters, such as Kong Kim, who could rival Silverwing. Let the higher-ups worry about this. We just need to do what we need to do. Yiga gradually calmed down. They all knew that soon there would be a battle in this mountain range, and no one knew how many mutants would show up. In the courtyard of the Chu family in Qingyang Town, the wind howled and the thunder rumbled. Chu Feng was practicing his punches. His every movement was different from before. His fists were covered with a layer of mysterious power. When he waved his fists, petals and leaves filled the air. At last, he let out a soft shout, and a puff of white smoke came out from his mouth and nose. The smoke flew around the courtyard and returned to his body. He had mastered the 8 style of Demon Ox fists. Even Yellow Cattle was puzzled by the speed of his progress. However, after 2 days of hard work, he still could not master the 9th style. The last style was a bit special. It was similar to the most difficult style of the first style. He stopped to rest for a while. Then, he went to the kitchen to prepare some food. However, the refrigerator was empty. There was nothing left to eat. There was still a piece of steak in the freezer, but if Yellow Cattle saw it, it would probably fight him to the death. No, it's time to go out for a walk. Chu Feng made up his mind. At the moment, all the supermarkets had been emptied. There was no way he could buy any meat. He did have some food at home, but he had been practicing his punches, which consumed a lot of energy. He felt hungry every day. Ordinary food was not enough for him. He needed a lot of meat. Yellow Cattle, let's go to the mountain. Chu Feng yelled. If he really wanted to go to the mountain, he would have to bring Yellow Cattle with him. This guy came from the mysterious wild mountains. Yellow Cattle was indifferent. It was lazy and didn't want to move at all. There are no pork chops and no turkey. You can only eat grass from now on. Do as you see fit. Chu Feng threatened. Yellow Cattle heard this and got up from the big bed. As soon as it heard that there was no meat to eat, it was not like a herbivore at all. Finally, under Chu Feng's request, it set off with him. Tying Mountains stretched endlessly. It was very magnificent. In this area, there were many mountains. The mountains were undulating. After going straight east through the fruit forest, one could enter the mountains after walking for about 20 miles. There had always been a lot of wild animals in the mountains. It was just that hunting was not allowed in the past. There were wild boars, leopards, macaques, roe deer, badgers, and so on. There were many kinds of animals. Of course, the ones people didn't want to see the most were the wolves. With the speed of Chu Feng and Yellow Cattle, it didn't take long for them to rush into the mountains. Along the way, Chu Feng looked very carefully. He was paying attention to see if there were any strange fruits. After all, this was a deserted place. Unfortunately, he didn't find anything. Wait, where are you going? It's too dangerous over there. Chu Feng suddenly stopped. Yellow Cattle ran to the front and was about to run towards a towering mountain. That mountain was surrounded by clouds and mist. The roar of beasts was terrifying. Occasionally, huge ferocious birds of 10 meters long could be seen circling around. Yellow Cattle stopped and signaled to him that it was going to go there. That is a dangerous place. There are too many ferocious beasts. Chu Feng's expression changed. It should be known that that was not the ordinary Taihang Mountains. It was a primitive mountain that emerged with the change of the world. That mountain was too majestic. Just one of it was enough to surpass hundreds of ordinary mountains. It was more than 10,000 meters tall, towering into the clouds. On the mountain, ancient trees towered up to the sky. Old vines were thick. Apes were howling and tigers were roaring. It was a primordial scene. Even from far away, one could feel a fierce, murderous aura. It covered the sky and covered the earth. It was very terrifying. Combat. Yellow Cattle carved 2 words on the ground. It was very serious. This was the reason why he brought Chu Feng here. He wanted to point out what he lacked. Chu Feng's expression changed slightly. He hesitated for a moment. Before coming here, he had never thought of approaching those ferocious birds and beasts. After the change of Taihang Mountains, hundreds and thousands of mysterious mountains appeared in this area. This was only one of them. Moo, Yellow Cattle urged. Fine, I will listen to you. Chu Feng gritted his teeth. He knew that Yellow Cattle would not harm him. Moreover, what he said was very reasonable. Since he had learned the Demon Ox Fist, he had nothing to worry about. Perhaps the Demon Ox Fist was born in this kind of cruel environment. Finally, he got close to the mountain. It was too big. It was like walking into a vast plateau. The vegetation here was dense, and there were many primitive creatures. They can't come out, but I can go in, Chu Feng asked. Yellow Cattle told him that it was so. Then, can I still come out? Chu Feng was doubtful. Yellow Cattle nodded and told him not to worry. As long as he was not killed by the beast, he could go back the way he came. Chu Feng was confused. He didn't know what the reason was. However, Yellow Cattle obviously didn't want to explain it to him. Although there was still some distance between them, he had already seen some ferocious beast that he had never heard of before. There was a monster that looked like a lion. Its back was full of bone spikes. It was 10 meters tall and passed through the forest. Chu Feng gulped. He felt a little uneasy. Could he be a match for such a huge beast? Yellow Cattle stared at him. After entering the forest, he didn't have to risk his life. The most important thing was to survive. First, he had to ensure his survival. Then, he could choose a suitable opponent to hunt. Finally, Chu Feng stepped into the primitive mountains. There were so many ancient trees that they covered the sky. Some old vines as thick as a water tank were lying in the forest. The demon ox warned him immediately. It told him to walk with the various moves of the demon ox fist, tighten his muscles, and seal his breath. Chu Feng did as he was told. He quickly followed the demon ox and left the place where it stopped. Boom! Sure enough, the forest was extremely dangerous. In the distance, the grass and trees swayed. A ferocious beast the size of a house rushed over. It looked like a cheetah, but it had a pair of horns. With a bang, it landed on the spot where they stopped. In the distance, Chu Feng could see clearly from behind the grass and trees. He gasped. He realized that there were still many things to learn. Being in this primitive mountain was indeed a good way to train people. If he could walk out of this place alive, he would be considered to have finished his apprenticeship. Now, Chu Feng didn't reject the idea at all. Instead, he put his heart and soul into it. He wanted to train himself here, because in the near future, Mount Taihang was going to be stormy. Many mutants would come, and there would definitely be a great battle. Now, he was entering the primitive mountain. Although it was risky, it was also a way for him to transform and adapt to all kinds of dangers. It was more important than simply improving his fist techniques. While passing through the forest, a spider the size of a fist suddenly fell from the sky. It almost touched Chu Feng's face. Bang! Without thinking, he punched out with his fist. Mincemeat flew everywhere. He quickly checked his fist, worried that it might be poisoned. Yellow Cattle shook its head slowly. It was telling Chu Feng not to worry. The Demon Ox boxing style was not that weak. Along the way, Chu Feng saw many monsters. The most dangerous time was when he was almost attacked by a 20-meter-long ferocious bird. It was a thrilling scene. That ferocious bird's entire body was fiery red. When it chased after Chu Feng, it crashed into a mountain wall and melted the boulders. This place was too dangerous. Chu Feng didn't fight it head-on. He dove into the forest and disappeared. When he passed by a quiet forest, Chu Feng felt a strong sense of unease. Based on his previous experience, he knew that there was probably a fearsome, ferocious beast in this place. This place might be its lair. Other creatures wouldn't dare to approach it, because this place was too quiet. However, Yellow Cattle insisted that he move forward. Not long after, Chu Feng's hair stood on end. He saw a snow-white tiger. It was 6 meters long, and its claws were sharp and gleaming with a cold light. It's not a tiger. That was because it had 3 tails, and each of them was flowing with a sparkling luster. With a gentle swing, the rocks would be smashed to pieces. Yellow Cattle carved words on the ground, telling Chu Feng that he would eat it today. Chu Feng's eyes widened. This was a huge, ferocious beast. Could it be that he was going to hunt it? That's it. Yellow Cattle confirmed it and nodded solemnly. It told him to go up and kill it, using this opportunity to practice his fist technique. The front was relatively open. There was no vegetation, and the ground was dry and hard. There was a cave on the mountain wall, and it was clearly the monster's lair. At this time, the 6-meter-long monster opened its merciless eyes and looked over. It had sensed an unfamiliar intruder. Roar! With a loud roar, the mountains shook and the earth quaked. The monster transformed into a beam of white light and instantly pounced over. It was too fast, and at the same time, it brought with it a fishy wind. Chapter 29. Chu Feng shouted and rushed forward. During this process, his adrenaline surged and his heartbeat sped up several times. His blood flowed faster and faster. As a modern man, he had never seen such things before. This was the first time in his life that he was facing a giant beast. In order to adapt to this tense and dangerous atmosphere, his body quickly adjusted. Roar! The 6-meter-long beast resembled a white tiger. It pounced in front of Chu Feng and opened its sharp claws. They were like shiny scythes that directly slashed down. Chu Feng dodged. Before he understood the strength of this giant beast, he did not dare to face it head-on. His body leaped and brushed against the edge of the claws as he flipped forward. Ka! The beast's claws landed on the ground, causing sparks to fly. There was a piece of mountain rock there that was directly cut into several deep grooves. One could imagine how sharp the claws were and how powerful they were. If it was an ordinary person that was caught by such a large claw, they would definitely be cut in half at the waist. There would be no way to survive. Wong! The air exploded as the 3 thick tails swept out with incomparable strength. After the giant beast's tails swung, they were taut like iron rods. Chu Feng dodged again. Kacha! A foot-thick tree beside him was whipped in half and fell to the ground with a loud bang. Leaves flew everywhere. Chu Feng's eyes stared blankly. As a modern man, when had he ever seen such a terrifying monster? Even though the world had changed and all sorts of strange phenomena had appeared, he had never personally experienced the ferocious giant beast in front of him. This fierce beast was called the 3-tailed beast. It was a variant of the giant tiger. It had 3 tails and a huge body that was usually more than 6 to 7 meters. It possessed all the abilities that the giant tiger possessed. Moreover, its 3 tails were as hard as iron, capable of easily cleaving the mountain walls and breaking the enemy's body. Roar! The beast's roar shook the sky and the forest shook. The 3-tailed beast pounced over and opened its bloody mouth that was big enough to swallow an adult. Its fangs were more than 2 feet long and were snow-white with a cold light. Chu Feng retreated again. If not for his speed, he would have been swallowed by the 3-tailed beast. Moo! Yellow Cattle growled in the distance, urging Chu Feng to attack and not be afraid. Who's afraid of who? Let's go all out. Chu Feng threw caution to the wind. He roared like a wild beast, causing the trees to tremble slightly. Previously, he had dodged several times. He could tell that the strength of the three-tailed beast was not greater than his. However, its bloody mouth and sharp claws were truly frightening. Now that he had rushed over, what was there to be afraid of? He had already unleashed the first form of the demon ox fists of Herculean strength. His fist was immediately wrapped in a layer of mysterious power. With a roar, he punched forward. A barbaric ox appeared behind him. Its body was black and flowing with dark light. It carried a primordial aura, and its physique was robust. Its pupils were glaring angrily, and its enormous horns pointed towards the heavens. It was as if it had descended from the archaic era. Moo! A bull's roar shook the mountain forest. Countless leaves rustled down and danced in the air. The three-tailed beast was startled, and its snow-white fur stood on end. It arched its body and prepared to launch its most powerful attack. Dong! Chu Feng's fist smashed down. As his fist imprints blossomed, the black barbaric ox behind him raised its head and raised its enormous horns. Flowing with dark light, it charged forward. The three-tailed beast opened its bloody mouth and slapped forward with its claws. It was going all out, attacking from many directions. With a rumble, the ground trembled slightly. Then the entire place shook violently. Although the difference in size between the man and the beast was quite large, their strength was not determined by their size. Ayo! The three-tailed beast roared in pain. It was actually wounded. It staggered backwards and then fell. The enormous barbaric ox's charge overturned it. When the dark light dissipated, Chu Feng's fist broke the three-tailed beast's claws and broke one of its 2-foot-long snow-white tusks. Blood flowed out. The first form of the demon ox fist was also known as the ultimate divine form. The barbaric ox revealed its boundless power, even greater than the three-tailed beast. The ground was dripping with blood. A broken tusk fell there like a snow-white blade. Blood dripped from the three-tailed beast's mouth. It rolled over from the ground and stood up. At this moment, its expression changed. It was no longer arrogant and had lost its domineering attitude. It's so powerful that it can kill a huge beast, Chu Feng murmured. He lowered his head and looked at his fist. He felt as if he was dreaming. He was not born in the great wasteland, so he had never experienced this kind of bloody struggle. Just now, he had to face the dense giant tusks at every turn. This result had a great impact on him. My fist imprints can turn limestone into powder. Naturally, I'm not afraid of it. Come, monster, practice with me, Chu Feng shouted. After experiencing the nervousness and even fear at the beginning, he gradually calmed down and adapted to the wild nature released in the great wasteland. The three-tailed beast's eyes flickered with an ominous glint. It arched its body, hit its sharp claws, and bared its snow-white tusks. It was not cowering, but accumulating power. This kind of vicious beast had a portion of the white tiger's bloodline. It belonged to a type of giant tiger and was naturally savage. Under normal circumstances, it would rarely lower its head and admit defeat. It would fight to the death with others. Come, practice your fists. Chu Feng was fearless. He took the initiative to attack. He brandished his fists and rushed forward. Bang, bang, bang. In the forest, the sound were dense. Chu Feng constantly punched out and fought fiercely with the three-tailed beast. He displayed the demon ox fists of great strength from the first to the 8th form. In actual combat, he became more and more adept and relaxed. If he wanted to kill, the three-tailed beast would have already been killed by him. However, in order to sharpen his fists, he had been holding back. Bang! The three-tailed beast's iron tail swept over again. In the end, Chu Feng took the initiative to meet it with a punch. One of the giant tails fell on the spot, and blood splattered everywhere. He frowned and took a step back. Although his strength was extraordinary, he was still not used to this kind of blood. As a modern person, he was not suited to killing. However, the three-tailed beast's ferocious nature was aroused. It did not care whether he was merciful or not. Its roar shook the sky, and it fiercely counterattacked. Its giant claws and bloody mouth arrived in front of him in an instant. A cold glint appeared in Chu Feng's eyes. He dodged by a hair's breadth. The giant claws brushed past his face and almost tore him apart. He roared and released his primitive wildness. He leaped up and attacked with all his might. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang. In the end, with 3 consecutive punches, Chu Feng broke the three-tailed beast's giant claws, cracked its skull, and punched a bloody hole in its chest. The battle was over. The 6-meter-long beast crashed to the ground with a loud bang, blood spewing everywhere. This time, Chu Feng did not dodge. He allowed the boiling hot beast blood to splatter on his body. He was very calm, and his heart was clear, as if he had received some kind of baptism. It was not malevolence, nor was it a sacrifice of blood. It was a survival instinct that was activated at this time and gradually sublimated. Chu Feng felt the past of the ancient ancestors. Standing on the primitive land, living in a harsh environment, they needed to fight against the heavens, fight against ferocious beasts, and bathe in the blood of gods just to survive. After a long time, he came back to his senses. Yellow Cattle had already approached and told him to drag this giant beast away. Chu Feng knew that he could not stay here for long. The smell of blood was too strong and could easily attract other fierce beasts. He dragged the 3-tailed beast and ran quickly along the original path. Even so, they were still hunted along the way. The smell of blood attracted all kinds of predators. In the primitive forest, pairs of terrifying eyes opened and looked in this direction. Then, they madly chased after them. They fought along the way. Fortunately, they were still in the periphery and not deep in the mountains. They did not encounter any particularly terrifying existences. Only when they were about to leave did they encounter danger. A large black hand, as big as 3 houses, fell from the sky and slammed down. With a boom, the whole forest shook violently as if there was a great earthquake. At the same time, half of the 3-tailed beast that Chu Feng was dragging was slapped and turned into mud. Blood splattered everywhere. The scene was quite terrifying. Moo! Yellow Cattle spread its hooves and directly rushed out of the mountain. There was still a small part of the beast left in Chu Feng's hand. It was splashed with blood and rolled out of the mountain pass. Fortunately, they were only a few meters away from the mountain, so they narrowly avoided the big black hand. Looking back, Chu Feng's hair stood on end. What kind of monster was that? It was especially huge like a mountain and had a humanoid body. Its whole body was pitch black and its hair was 5 or 6 feet long. Even the black hand was no exception. Black-haired AO. Just now, it pounced over and smashed down with its palm, almost slapping Chu Feng and the Yellow Cattle below. It had already stood up. Its huge body was 1 to 200 meters tall like a black mountain. Its eyes were cold as it gazed outside. However, it did not force its way out. After watching for a moment, it slowly retreated. The forest was shaking and the leaves rustled down. Chu Feng could see it clearly. It disappeared behind the mountain and walked into the depths of the mountain. There were even more desolate mountains there. After a long time, Chu Feng was still looking. His body was covered with beast blood and cold sweat. Finally, he looked down and saw that the 3-tailed beast only had 2 hind legs and a small part of its body left. Most of it had been turned into mud by that earth-shattering attack. What kind of monster is that? We were almost turned into meat paste. He sighed, feeling that his body was still a bit cold. Black God Ape. Yellow Ox wrote these 3 words. Then it scratched on the ground, and a new line of words appeared. It read, "In a year and a half, I will kill it." Although only 2 hind legs were left, they still weighed a few hundred pounds. Chu Feng carried it and ran all the way home. After a simple cleaning, he peeled off the beast's skin and used the black dagger to dissect the beast's legs. He stuffed all of them into 2 big freezers. I won't have to go out for many days. Chu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Yellow Cattle shook its head and solemnly told him that he had to go every day. Chu Feng opened his mouth, but in the end, he nodded. He knew that going there to temper himself was indeed a great harvest. If he could deal with all kinds of dangers, he would be transformed. For example, compared to before he entered the mountain, he was much stronger. His temperament, courage, and experience had all been improved. Chu Feng knew that the changes of the world were intensifying. It was necessary for him to transform a small part of his wild nature. Otherwise, he would have to wait passively for the cruel and vile environment to appear. At that time, he would have to use his blood and life to exchange for experience. He would lose even more. In the following days, Chu Feng entered the mountain every day to temper himself and practice his fist techniques. The strength of his fists became stronger and stronger. His understanding of the first 8 forms deepened, and he gained a new understanding. This caused the power of the demon ox fists to increase. Soon after, he mastered the 9th form of the demon ox fists. He was forced to use it when he was fighting against a 10-meter-long, ferocious bird. Buddha throws the elephant. Chapter 30. Within a few days, Chu Feng roamed the desolate mountains. He seemed to be undergoing a metamorphosis. From being nervous, sweating, and unwilling to see blood, he gradually became calm, unperturbed, and unhurried. He could survive in the primitive mountains, fight fiercely, and live a good life. He continued to practice and consolidate his foundation, comprehending all 9 forms of the demon ox fists. In the mountains, there were lush and ancient trees that covered the sky. Chu Feng was traversing. This time, the yellow cattle did not follow him. He was alone. Ga. A bird's cry exploded in his ears like a thunderclap. In the air, a black bird of prey swooped down with great speed, bringing with it astral winds. This was a giant jet black bird that was more than 10 meters long. It seemed to be cast from black gold and had a cold metallic luster. Even its claws were black and incomparably sharp. Gotcha! Chu Feng avoided it and hid behind a 500-kilogram boulder. The giant claws directly cracked the boulder. It was a terrifying scene. This black bird's eyes were blood red. It was cold, cruel, and extremely ferocious. It was so big that it could tear apart a giant elephant. Whoosh! The wind surged as it swooped down again, ignoring the forest. Its black feathers were as hard as steel and actually destroyed some of the giant trees. Withered leaves danced in the air. Chu Feng was fearless. After these days of training, he seemed to have been reborn. As he walked on this desolate land, he was calm and fearless, courageous and brave. A fierce battle broke out and lasted for a full quarter of an hour. Finally, Chu Feng leaped up fiercely and met the ferocious giant bird in the air. At this moment, the 9 forms of fist seals were like the heaven-overturning seal. They were ferocious and overbearing, as if they could break through all obstacles. All of them landed on the black bird's chest. The jet black feathers immediately exploded on the chest and danced in the air. The vicious bird let out an exceptionally ear-piercing shriek, as if it wanted to pierce through one's eardrums. Puffed. Its chest caved in and then split open, revealing a huge bloody hole from which fresh blood gushed out. The enormous corpse fell head first onto the ground, causing the mountain region to shake violently. The surrounding ancient trees swayed violently, and there were even more mountain rocks tumbling about. Chu Feng bathed in the blood of the giant bird and stood there without moving. He was very calm and had long since lost the nervousness from a few days ago. He calmly watched all of this. Then, he took a part of the giant bird's flesh and carried it on his back. Let's have a taste of the giant bird's meat today. At home, he cleaned up and used the black dagger to cut the meat. In the kitchen, he cooked, braised, fried, and made a table full of poultry dishes. It's really delicious, Chu Feng exclaimed. Most importantly, the wild beasts he had hunted in the past few days all contained an astonishing amount of energy. It was enough to replenish his body's needs, allowing him to feel that it was beneficial when he practiced boxing, and his physique was becoming stronger. Moo! Yellow Cattle was also very satisfied. Its stomach was very bloated. It had obviously gained weight over the past few days and was somewhat meaty. Behave yourself at home. I'll send some wild beasts to Uncle Lu and Zhao San. Chu Feng said to Yellow Cattle after eating his fill. These days, he had sent some beast meat over. Uncle Lou from the old goods shop and Zhao San from the cold weapon workshop were full of praise, thinking that the quality of the meat was superb. Of course, he didn't dare to say that it was the meat of a giant beast. The sky was getting dark. Chu Feng carried 2 big bags of cooked meat to the courtyard. He couldn't help but walk towards the place where he had buried the seeds. He carefully looked at them. Unfortunately, there were still no sprouts to impersonate. Yellow Cattle noticed that Chu Feng was looking at it again. It felt uncomfortable all over, feeling that he was harboring deep malice. It immediately widened its eyes and slammed the door shut. "Huffed, do you think I have to have your cow dung? Now, other than dragon dung, I can't find any other giant beast excrement. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm worried about blaspheming the Queen Mother of West and the Ninth Heaven Fairy, I would have already done it," Chu Feng said and then laughed. "Moo!" The whole room was shaking. Yellow Cattle flew into a rage out of humiliation. Chu Feng ignored it and walked towards the quiet street. When he returned, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. It was already very late because Uncle Lou from the old goods shop and Zhao San from the cold weapon workshop had asked him to drink a few glasses of wine. When he was still some distance away from home, Chu Feng saw a ball of golden light. Obviously, it was Yellow Cattle. This fellow walked out of the courtyard sneakily, shrinking its head. It was like a thief, and with a swoosh, it went into the orchard on the east side of the courtyard. Chu Feng hid at the corner of the road. He was very surprised. What secret did this fellow have? Why was it so strange? Why did it sneak into the orchard at night? He was very curious. Following the method Yellow Cattle taught him, he tightened his body to prevent the leakage of qi. Then he stealthily followed it. Sure enough, Yellow Cattle was very careful. It looked around from time to time, and at the same time, it kept looking back suddenly, as if it was afraid that someone was following it. "Something's wrong," Chu Feng murmured. He felt more and more that this fellow was definitely up to something. Otherwise, why would it be so careful and look back as if it was guarding against a thief? Without a doubt, it was guarding against him, afraid that he would follow it. Chu Feng had to stop and keep a distance because he knew that Yellow Cattle was very sharp. It had a kind of almost instinctive intuition. If he was too close, he would definitely be discovered. Recently, he had achieved some success in his boxing practice. He had also developed this kind of intuition. Even if he was far away and couldn't see dangerous giant beasts, he could still sense it in advance. This was like a primitive instinct. After he was far enough, Chu Feng was sure that Yellow Cattle couldn't find him. He followed it at a moderate pace, and in this way, he could only vaguely see a ball of hazy golden light moving forward in the orchard. Finally, Yellow Cattle stopped at a certain place and quickly turned back to confirm that there was no one following it. Chu Feng cursed silently. This damn cow was too cautious. What was so strange about it that it was actually so careful? He quickly hid behind an old peach tree and didn't move at all. A moment later, Chu Feng discovered that Yellow Cattle was digging a hole there and seemed to be burying something. "This fellow is burying a treasure? How dare it carry me?" Chu Feng ground his teeth, but he was very calm and waited patiently. He hid behind an old tree and didn't move at all. Yellow Cattle seemed very satisfied. It didn't know what it had buried, but it hummed along the way and trotted back with its hooves in a very relaxed manner. "Little cow, you want to hide from me? No way. In a while, I will clean up the entire nest for you so that you won't have a place to cry." Chu Feng secretly planned and couldn't help but reveal a complacent smile on his face. One could imagine that one day, when Yellow Cattle wanted to come here to search, it would definitely stomp its feet in anger when it saw that it was empty. With a smile on his face, Chu Feng waited until Yellow Cattle was completely far away before he slowly turned around from behind the tree and prepared to dig up the treasure. He was very clear that Bull Demon had always been very picky. Things that could catch its eye were most likely extraordinary. The last few times I entered the mountain, could have obtained something good behind my back, Chu Feng guessed. Suddenly, he heard some sounds. Although they were very far away, with his keen senses, he had already sensed them. Who would come to the orchard in the middle of the night? This actually gave him a sense of alarm. He retreated behind the old tree and calmed down once again. He tightened his muscles and sealed all of his chi activity, instantly blending into the boundless night. In midair, a giant bat appeared and slowly descended into the fruit tree forest. Chu Feng was astonished. Then he frowned. It was actually a man, but he had a pair of demonic wings and looked like a giant bat. He landed silently. At the same time, there was also a woman on the ground. Like a gust of wind, she arrived almost at the same time as him. The man with the demonic wings had a gentle face and was unexpectedly very beautiful. He just happened to land at the place where yellow cattle had hidden the treasure. The woman's appearance could only be said to be ordinary, but she loved to dress up. Her red lips were bright, and her smoky clothes were very fashionable. Moreover, in the dark, she was actually wearing a snow-white dress. What was that just now? It was a hazy ball of golden light. It looked like a golden bull to me. It was really strange. The two stood there and whispered to each other. I just saw it go in the direction of Qingyang town. Oh, it's in the same town as our target, Chu Feng. In the distance, Chu Feng's 5 sharp senses had already heard it. Immediately, his heart sank. These two people had come for him and regarded him as their target. What did they want? He immediately stopped moving. He actually ordered us to move together. He's just a mortal. No matter what, we're going to kill tonight. The man with the demonic wings said. His handsome face was full of coldness. That golden creature just now had dug a hole here. It seemed to be hiding something. Maybe we're lucky. The woman in white combed her long hair and smiled sweetly. She didn't care about a trivial matter like killing Chu Feng. She only cared about what was in front of her. She curled up and squatted down. She had always been clean, but now her 10 fingers were stained with dirt. This was because she had just seen that it was a golden animal. It was very rare and definitely extraordinary. If there's anything good, we'll split it evenly, the man with the demonic wings said. In the darkness, Chu Feng watched calmly. He didn't stop them. Now is not a good time to make a move. The other party regarded him as their target, and there would be a better opportunity later. On the ground, the woman in white was digging. In the dark, her eyes were very bright and full of expectation. Chu Feng frowned slightly, but after thinking about it, he wasn't too worried. In a while, he would get rid of these two people, and the yellow cattle wouldn't be able to escape. Suddenly, the woman in white screamed. Under the curtain of the night, it was especially ear-piercing and spread far. She seemed to have experienced a nightmare. She swung her hands like crazy, and then she rubbed them on the man with the demonic wings with all her might. What are you doing? Obviously, the man with the demonic wings already knew what it was. He was instantly furious and quickly retreated. At the same time, he couldn't help but retch. Cow dung, cow dung. The woman screamed at the top of her lungs. She kept swinging her hands, violently rubbing them on the ground and the tree trunk. In the end, she squatted there and vomited. In the distance, Chu Feng was dumbfounded. For a long time, he didn't move and watched silently. At this moment, his brain was spinning violently, and many thoughts came to mind in an instant. After a long time, Chu Feng wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Damn it, that was too thrilling. His face turned green, red, and white. He was a little scared. Yellow cattle was really a piece of *T. He cursed and cursed in his heart. Originally, he had planned to follow behind Yellow Ox, planning to dig up the treasures in secret and give the calf a clean sweep. If it weren't for the appearance of these two people, he wouldn't have dared to imagine what would happen next. That scene was just too terrifying. Chu Feng wiped the sweat off his forehead again. In his heart, he cursed yellow cattle 800 times. Wasn't it just solving its own problem? Did it have to be so secretive like a thief? This thing was born to be a troublemaker. Anyone who discovered its strange movements would be curious and want to secretly follow it. Soon, Chu Feng understood. A few days ago, he kept mentioning the cow dung and asked yellow cattle for help, which obviously caused it to be traumatized. It was guarding against him. Stupid cow. After figuring out the key points, Chu Feng was speechless. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Between him and yellow cattle, It was hard to say who was the one who almost set the other up. In the distance, the woman in white, who was obsessed with cleanliness and always loved to look beautiful, vomited until her bile was about to come out. She was still coughing and screaming. That sound was a little scary. It was as if she was suffering the most painful torture. The man with the demonic wings also retched for a long time. He decisively took off his clothes and threw them to the ground. His face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. Chapter 31. I'm going crazy, The woman in white vomited until her face was pale. She shook her head and screamed nonstop. She stood up and ran into the distance. There was a stream over there, and she couldn't stand the pollution on her hands. She wanted to chop off her hands, so she ran all the way. When she got close, she put her hands into the cold water and scrubbed them so hard that they were almost peeling off. The man was no exception. His face was gloomy as he retched and staggered to the stream. He squatted there and washed his hands. Chu Feng watched from afar. He didn't ambush them because he didn't like them. He couldn't stand it from so far away. One could imagine how the two were feeling right now. I'm going crazy. I can't stand it. What kind of monster is that? I want to kill it and cut it into pieces. The woman's scream echoed in the night sky. Let's go and finish the target first, the man said. His face was handsome, but his eyes were malicious. He had had enough and felt uncomfortable all over. He had nowhere to vent his anger and wanted to finish the mission as soon as possible. The woman in white didn't move. She wanted to wash her hands hundreds of times. Chu Feng turned around and disappeared into the night. After a long time, the two appeared outside the Chu family's courtyard. Just then, Chu Feng pushed open the door and walked out of the courtyard. If he didn't want to get some information from them, he would have already attacked. Now he pretended to be an ordinary person and asked who they were with a surprised look. I don't want to talk to you. You just need to know that someone doesn't want you to live. The man with the devil wings had a look of disgust and coldness on his face. Why? Who wants to kill me? Chu Feng was shocked and took a few steps back. The night sky was quiet and the stars were shining brightly. The man spread his black devil wings and slowly rose into the sky. He floated there and emitted an incomparably powerful aura. It was as if he had imprisoned the whole world. Now, I'll give you a chance to choose a way to die. One is to be electrocuted and the other is to be burnt to ashes. Choose quickly, he urged coldly. He didn't care about life at all. He didn't care about Chu Feng's life at all. To him, it was just a trivial matter. You're an inhuman, but you listen to others. At the same time, I'm also worried that if I didn't die in an accident, something might have happened and made you apprehensive, Chu Feng said calmly. Through this, he could analyze many things. You're just a mortal at the bottom of society. Do you think you're worthy of making me worry? Killing you is no different from crushing a bug. The man with the demonic wings said in disgust. His mood was extremely bad. He wanted to quickly get rid of this person and then immediately return to soak himself in the hot spring. I don't want to stay here for even a moment longer. Hurry up and finish this. The woman in white became even more anxious and lost her patience. She gritted her teeth and said, When we enter Qingyang town, we will find that monster. I want to kill it with my own hands. The man with the demonic wings made his move and swooped down. He did not want to waste any time. Bang! However, in the next moment, he was sent flying again. Chu Feng stood where he was and threw a punch at him, sending him flying into the air. Several of his bones were broken on the spot, and a large part of his chest caved in. His whole body was sent flying, and finally, he fell to the ground with his mouth full of bloody foam. He lay on the ground and coughed out blood. His face was full of shock. That power had frightened him. He was inhuman with an extraordinary physique, but he was almost killed by a punch. He endured the pain and soared into the sky again. He had not used his strongest move yet. What happened just now was too sudden. He spread his blood-stained, demonic wings and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked at Chu Feng coldly and said with a bone-chilling voice, You're not an ordinary person. I was wrong. Then, he opened his mouth and let out a strange roar. Suddenly, a mysterious power rushed out. It was like a sound wave, but it was tangible. It turned into black ripples, wave after wave, surging outwards. It was incomparably terrifying and rushed towards Chu Feng. Bang! The grass, trees, and stones on the ground all cracked. The scene was terrifying. This kind of power was incomparably terrifying. Not far away, the lady in white was relieved and quickly retreated. That was because the man with the demonic wings only needed to release black ripples from his mouth to be incomparably terrifying. He had once swept away many mutants alone. He was least afraid of group battles and was invincible. As for dealing with ordinary people, he had done experiments before. He could defeat 1,000 people in one go. After the black ripples vibrated, it did not distinguish between friend and foe. At this time, the stars in the sky were shining resplendently. A man with the demonic wings seemed to cover the starry sky. He unfolded a pair of huge wings made of flesh. There was blood at the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were cold and merciless. The black ripples spread out from him. On the ground, all kinds of objects were broken into pieces. The scene was too terrifying. This was a mutant. Chu Feng was indeed in trouble. The ripples seemed to be all-pervasive and wanted to tear his body apart. They wanted to rush into his head and cause him severe pain. However, he was very calm and did not panic at all. Boom! He still used the demon ox fists and condensed the ultimate divine form. A tall black bull appeared behind him. Following a low roar from Chu Feng, it also raised its head towards the sky. Roar! An enormous roar and a terrifying sound wave technique appeared. After the divine form of the demon ox fists condensed, it contained the sound of thunder and the roar of an ancient bull. This was both a fist technique and a sound wave technique. Puffed. In midair, the black ripples that rushed out from the mouth of the handsome man with the demonic wings completely collapsed. Moreover, his entire body seemed to have been struck by lightning. He coughed out large mouthfuls of blood and fell head first. He felt a burning sensation in his throat as blood continuously gushed out. His chest was in even more pain, and at the same time, blood was flowing from his mouth, nose, and ears. All of his 7 apertures were injured. The white-clothed woman became deathly pale after seeing this scene. She quickly made her move. Her palm emitted purple light, and then a vine appeared. It rapidly extended towards Chu Feng and whipped towards him. Chu Feng evaded it. The vine whipped the ground, and the limestone floor cracked in an instant. The power was truly astonishing. Vines drilled out one after another from her palm and quickly extended here to seal off all the paths. She wanted to trap Chu Feng inside and strangle him to death. At the same time, the vine swayed and whipped continuously. It caused the ground to crack and the earth to collapse. It was extremely terrifying. Dong! However, the current Chu Feng was no longer the same as he was when he fought against Wajun. He was very calm when facing these 2 mutants. His speed was simply too fast. Now, he only needed 8 seconds to cover a distance of 100 meters. Ever since he mastered the Demon Ox fists, his strength and speed had increased by a large margin. His physique had also become more and more astonishing. He was currently testing out the so-called sanctification of the mortal body. An afterimage streak passed. Chu Feng leaped up and kicked the white-clothed woman horizontally. She crashed into the orchard with a loud bang. Her mouth was full of blood, and she could no longer get up. In just a few moves, he had taken care of 2 people. Suddenly, he felt a sense of foreboding. The back of his head was numb, and he felt a stabbing pain. He hastily dodged. Bang! Not far away, the man with the demonic wings pulled the trigger. The pitch-black muzzle spat out a beam of flame. He wanted to kill Chu Feng from behind. The bullet whizzed past. It was obviously very fast, but Chu Feng's eyes were bright. It was as if he could see the trajectory of the bullet. He had already dodged in advance, and his head was not hit. Bang, 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 the man fired in succession. His eyes were cold. He had suffered serious injuries. His face was covered in blood, and his chest was almost pierced through by a punch. Now, he borrowed the power of the machine gun to take revenge and ruthlessly eliminate his target. However, ever since Chu Feng mastered the Demon Ox fists, not only did his body's reaction speed increase, but more importantly, his primal instincts had been activated. His intuition was keen, and he could actually sense danger in advance. Every part of his body would feel numb from time to time. That was the sign of impending danger. It allowed him to dodge in advance every time. The pupils of the two mutants constricted. Their faces were pale, and they were frightened. This was the target they wanted to eliminate. Was he really immortal? What a joke. The bullets had run out. The man with the demonic wings endured the intense pain. Blood dripped from his mouth as he violently flapped his wings and soared into the sky in an attempt to escape. Chu Feng decisively made his move. A black dagger flew out like a black bolt of lightning. It rushed into the night sky, and with a puff, it pierced through the man's body, causing him to fall from the sky once again. The man with the demonic wings could no longer get up. His injuries were too severe, and he was on the verge of death. The starry sky was shining brightly, and all was silent. Now, not a single sound could be heard. Chu Feng was very calm. His whole body was glowing as he looked down at the two people on the ground. The two mutants were incomparably shocked, and they felt a sense of fear. This young man, named Chu Feng, didn't even reveal his mutant state, and yet he was able to sweep them away just like that. Just how strong was he? Both of them were scared. They felt as if they were facing a demonic god, high above them, undefeatable. At this time, the yellow cattle appeared. It looked at the two with a puzzled expression. If it wasn't for the huge commotion outside, it wouldn't have come out. The woman in white raised her head and saw the yellow cattle. Then, her expression changed completely. She knew that the so-called culprit was it. She screamed. In an instant, she recalled the experience not long ago. It was like a nightmare. As the yellow cattle approached, she couldn't help but vomit again. She lay there trembling. The main reason was that the shadow in her heart was too big. The yellow cattle was puzzled at first, but then it became angry. As it approached, the woman vomited even more violently. "Are you looking down on me?" Clang! It stepped on the woman's forehead with its two hooves. Her eyes rolled back, and she fainted. "Tell me everything you know." Chu Feng stared at the man with the devil's wings. However, his mouth was tightly shut, not willing to speak, looking like he would rather die than submit. His eyes carried hatred, as well as a type of restraining fear and powerlessness. Deep in his heart, there was a kind of fear. He looked at Chu Feng as if he was facing a demonic god. Bang! In the end, Chu Feng also stepped on him, and he fainted. "Keep an eye on them," Chu Feng said. He walked into the orchard and dialed Linoy's communicator in the quiet night. He knew that Linoy was not the mastermind behind this incident, but there was some cause and effect. Perhaps it was one of her pursuers, or perhaps it was someone close to her that caused this to happen. First, there was Zui Jun who wanted to humiliate him, and now there were two mutants who wanted to kill him. Did they really think that he was a pushover? He would not blame Linoy, because it was not her doing. However, he needed to find the culprit and make him pay. He just wanted to tell Linoy the truth. He believed that with her calmness and intelligence, she would immediately find out who the culprit was, and then he would know. The culprit had scruples and had been sneaking around, using such underhanded means to deal with him. Therefore, he might as well flip the table and expose everything, forcing him to reveal his true colors. Pursuer? Despicable means. Don't force me to kill you. I will make you regret being born into this world. Chu Feng's eyes were cold. Come on, throw your recommendation votes at me. Everyone, throw your recommendation votes at the holy ground. Thank you so much. Chapter 32. It would not have been Chu Feng's character to endure being targeted like this. Even his death had been arranged in advance. He would either die from electrocution or be charred by fire. Even his death would have been humiliating. If he had not mastered the 9 styles, his fate would have been very sad. The communicator was connected, and a woman's voice came through. The night sky was dotted with stars. Chu Feng stood in the quiet orchard with a look of surprise. This was not Linoy at all. At this moment, everything was quiet and peaceful. He heard it clearly. Wrong person? He looked down and carefully looked again. There was no mistake. It was Linoy's number. But how could it be someone else's voice? I'm looking for Linoy, he said calmly. Chu Feng, the one from Tying Mountain? Obviously, the woman on the other end had noticed the name on the communicator and confirmed his identity. Yes, Chu Feng answered. You're in Qingyang Town, right? That place is a bit remote, but very quiet. It is far away from the impetuous city. It is a good place. If you work hard, you'll be successful. It is much better than Jiangning, the woman said casually. Chu Feng frowned. What did this woman mean? Who was she? Although she said it lightly, there was a hidden meaning behind it. Qingyang Town was just a small town at the foot of Tying Mountain. Jiangning, on the other hand, was a big city. It was very prosperous and was the center of Jiangnan. Putting the two together and comparing them without leaving a trace. Was this a reminder or a hint? But Chu Feng was very calm. He only said that he had something to discuss with Linoy. Linoy has been very busy lately. There are many important things waiting for her to deal with in celestial biology. Those who are close to her know that, so no one wants to disturb her. The woman's voice was very gentle. Chu Feng was surprised. This was a very powerful woman. She seemed to be gentle and spoke casually, but depended on how you looked at it. There was a deeper meaning behind it. Those words just now highlighted Linoy's status and also pointed out the range of people close to her. They said it naturally, and it could be said to be watertight, but there was a hidden edge. Chu Feng guessed that this woman had a close relationship with Linoy. Otherwise, how could she have access to her communicator? He didn't refute and just treated her calmly. Then, Chu Feng smiled and ended the call, apologizing to her for disturbing her. He put down the communicator and decided to call again after a while. Linoy's communicator could not always be with this woman. This matter was beyond his expectations. Unexpectedly, he was unable to contact Lin Naoi. What kind of relationship did this woman have with Lin Naoi? It was hard to tell her age from her voice. It was hard to tell if she was a young lady in her 20s or a lady in her 30s or 40s. An hour later, Chu Feng dialed Lin Naoi's number again. A woman's lazy voice came from the other end. It was very pleasant to hear, but it was also a little irreverent. She said, "Why are you calling again?" Chu Feng was helpless. Why was it still her? It's best if you don't contact Naoi again. She's very busy and doesn't have time. One must know one's limits. This time, the woman's tone was a little more direct and arrogant. You're overthinking it. I just have some things I want to talk to her face to face. Chu Feng was as calm as ever. Some things don't need to be entangled with each other. There won't be any results. Do you understand what I'm saying? Be down to earth and live a good life in Qingyang Town. It suits you very well. The woman's voice was a little indifferent. Clearly, she had lost her patience and was no longer being tactful. It seems that the misunderstanding has deepened. Chu Feng's words were concise. Although he said so, he had no intention of explaining. There's no misunderstanding to speak of. Don't disturb Naoi in the future. She has her life, and you have your world. You belong to a different world. If you insist on entangling with her, unpredictable things will most likely happen. Perhaps you don't understand now, but I think you will soon. The woman's voice became cold. Chu Feng's heart moved as he heard these words. Then, he casually said, "In fact, you're thinking too much. I'm looking for Naoi because I want to tell her something strange." "Oh, what is it?" "You can tell me. I'll pass it on." The woman seemed a little surprised. "Today, a big bat fell outside my house. It's covered in blood." He stopped here and listened to the other side's reaction. Sure enough, the woman seemed to be startled. She suddenly sat up on the bed. Then, she became very quiet and didn't make any sound. After a while, she calmly asked, "Is this the news you want to tell me about such a boring thing?" "That big bat was seriously injured, but he wasn't very friendly to me. It seems that even if he isn't a member of celestial biology, he's still related to me," Chu Feng said in a neither hurried nor slow manner. The other side was silent for a while. When the woman spoke again, her voice was a little gentler. Since he's related to celestial biology, you should help him. Don't let anything happen to him. Chu Feng's eyes were a little cold. This woman knew the man with the devil's wings. Why should I help him? Although I don't know why he was injured, he's always been very unfriendly to me. It feels like he wants to kill me. He said, You. The woman was angry. At this point, she couldn't stay calm anymore. She couldn't use her previous attitude to deal with Chu Feng. She felt a little angry. I'm warning you. If anything happens to him, you won't have a good ending. The woman said straightforwardly. She was threatening him. Chu Feng pondered. It seemed that the man with the devil's wings was a powerful expert. He wasn't the kind of chess piece that could be casually discarded. He was worthy of her protection. Thinking about it carefully, the handsome man was indeed very strong. If it wasn't for the bull's roar, it would be really troublesome to deal with him. The man's devil's wings spread across the sky. He spat out black ripples from his mouth. He didn't distinguish between friend and foe. Within a certain range, there was nothing he couldn't kill. Even the bluestone ground cracked. His strength and status were indeed extraordinary. What does it have to do with me? He's going to die anyway. I don't think he'll last more than a day or two. When Chu Feng said these words, he glanced at the two mutants who were lying on the ground. Someone will take him away. You just need to treat his wounds. Don't worry about anything else. The woman said coldly. Then, she ended the call. Chu Feng put down the communicator. A cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He had seen some clues. Why should he be afraid of them? He fetched some iron chains and tied the two mutants tightly. Then, he threw them into the yard and went straight back to his room to sleep. It was a quiet night. No one came to the yard. It wasn't until noon, when Chu Feng and the yellow cattle had finished their meal, that someone came to the door and barged into the yard. You are Chu Feng? Where is he? It was a middle-aged man in his 30s. His face was slightly tanned. He had a medium build and a strong aura. His eyes were aggressive. I am Chu Feng. Look, isn't he over there? Chu Feng pointed to the corner of the yard. The man saw the two mutants who were tied up. They were covered in blood and were unconscious. He frowned and turned around to look at Chu Feng. His eyes were cold. You can't blame me. They were seriously injured, but they still looked like they wanted to kill me. Who wouldn't be afraid of a monster like that? I had no choice but to tie them up. Chu Feng shrugged helplessly. All right, I'll take them away. As for you, you died in the fire. The middle-aged man said. He rushed over and punched at Chu Feng's temple. He was going to kill him. Chu Feng's face was cold. He didn't move an inch. He formed a fist with his right hand and took the initiative to meet the man's fist. Ah! The middle-aged man screamed in pain. His whole body was sent flying. His fist was broken, and his arm was twisted and deformed. It was as if he had been hit by a mountain. There's something strange about you. Attack, he said angrily. At the same time, several muzzles with silencers appeared on the wall. They were all large-caliber weapons. They sprayed bullets at Chu Feng. However, after mastering the 9 forms of fist arts, Chu Feng's instinct was activated. He could predict danger in advance and dodge. His speed was so fast that he jumped out of the wall. Bang, 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 one punch after another, the 4 gun-wielding men's bones cracked. Blood spurted out of their mouths, and they were sent flying. All of them fell to the ground. The middle-aged man was shocked. He opened his mouth and spat out a white light. It looked like a spider's web. It wrapped around Chu Feng. It was extremely strange. Chu Feng dodged in a flash. The man's body swelled, and his joints seemed to be moving. From both sides of his body, several pairs of spider legs grew out. They were black but hard and flashed with a metallic luster. He was like a giant black spider, spitting out silk from his mouth. Those black spider legs left deep marks on the ground. When they came into contact with the stones, they were directly cut into pieces. It was a horrifying scene. Buzz. The void seemed to be humming. After he rushed over, the spider legs stretched taut and pierced towards Chu Feng's body. They were like black spears with matchless sharpness. Gotcha! Unfortunately, after Chu Feng condensed the ultimate divine form of the demon ox fists, he formed a fist seal and broke a few of the black and gold spider legs. His fist smashed into the man's chest and directly pierced through, leaving a terrifying bloody hole. The middle-aged man screamed in pain. He fell there and could no longer get up. Chu Feng was very calm. He looked at them. Although these people were seriously injured and on the verge of death, they were still tied up by him. Yellow cattle, throw them into the desolate mountains, said Chu Feng. Yellow cattle tilted his head. His meaning was, I'm not going. That woman and the man with the demonic wings dug the hole you buried last night and found out your secret, said Chu Feng. After hearing these words, the yellow cattle's fur all stood up. His golden hair almost stood on end. He was angry out of humiliation. It was as if his most secret had been seen, and he flew into a rage. Don't fight with me. They were the ones who dug it. If you don't believe me, you can interrogate them. Otherwise, why would the woman in white vomit after seeing you? Said Chu Feng. Yellow Cattle's face was actually changing color. It was as if it was congested with blood and turned a little purple. If it was a person, they would definitely be green and white. He was furious that his secret had been discovered. After a while, he finally dragged the group of people away and ran straight towards the mountain. How terrifying. Wasn't it discovered when you were solving your own problem? Did you have to be angry out of humiliation and kill us to silence us? Mumbled Chu Feng. He could see that Yellow Cattle cared a lot about it, and especially didn't want others to peep at it. He decided that he would never mention the cow dung again. Those people were tied up and dragged away by Yellow Cattle in one breath. When it came back, Chu Feng asked about the result. Yellow Cattle seemed to have calmed down. One of its hooves covered its eyes, and it mooed a few times. It meant that the ending was too cruel, and it couldn't bear to see it. Chu Feng was speechless. You were the one who threw them into the mountain. How cruel. In the evening, after Chu Feng finished his boxing practice, he took a hot bath and read in his room. This time, he didn't contact Linoy or that woman. Not long after, his communicator rang. It was the other party who took the initiative to call. He didn't pick up the call. He was still reading with great interest. After a while, the communicator rang again. He didn't talk to the other party. It was still the same woman. Her voice was a little high. She asked Chu Feng if he saw anyone rescue the man with the demonic wings. Chapter 33. After hearing these words, the woman on the other end of the communicator was silent. There was no reply. A moment later, she exploded. Is there a big pit in front of your house? Everyone who goes there falls to the ground. In the end, they are either crippled or seriously injured. Her voice was very loud. It was so loud that it made people's ears ring. It was as if she was venting some kind of emotion. Chu Feng took the communicator away from his ear and listened attentively. Finally, he said slowly, Yes, there's indeed a big pit. It used to be a pond, but later it dried up. So he scattered some seeds and planted some vegetables. Of course, we also planted some fruit trees. If you look closely, the big pit is actually very obvious. On the other end of the communicator, the woman's breathing became heavier. It was as if her chest was heaving up and down violently. Chu Feng hurriedly took the communicator away from his ear again. Sure enough, there was a burst of sound on the other end. I don't have time to discuss the pond and the big pit with you. I don't care if you plant vegetables or trees. Listen to me, nothing can happen to those people. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. The woman's voice was a bit cold. She shouted loudly. She felt that she had lost her composure, but she couldn't help but raise her voice to the communicator. This was completely different from her usual self. Nobility, grace, peace, and elegance were all gone at this moment. There was a ball of fire beating in her heart. But they were inexplicably injured and fell into the pit. They don't have long to live. What can I do? Chu Feng said. Find me someone to treat them. The woman shouted. Why should I? How dare that kid from Tying Mountain talk to her like that? Snap. The woman quickly hung up because she realized that this was not her style. If a person lost her composure, she would expose her weakness. She needed to calm down. Even if that kid was just a lowly and useless kid from Tying Mountain, she didn't want to expose more of her inner thoughts in front of him. Obviously, the woman was angry, but she could control herself and quickly adjusted her emotions. She calmed down and calmed down. Her eyes flashed with a cold light as she analyzed the matter. As far as she knew, because Linoy had been close to Chu Feng, the people from celestial biology had paid attention to Chu Feng. They had secretly brought back a few strands of his hair and tested them in secret. They were convinced that it was very difficult for him to become a mutant. A lowly brat without any ability. Who was helping him? The woman muttered to herself. She thought of Linoy. Could it be that she had sensed something? This startled her. But how was that possible? Linoy and Chu Feng had always been very calm, and she couldn't care about anything else recently. She was at the most critical juncture, quietly waiting for her transformation, and had no time to care about anything else. Is Bodhi biogenetics trying to stop us? She frowned. She was thinking too much. She thought about Chu Feng, considered the inside of celestial biology, and then suspected the super conglomerate Bodhi genetics. She took out her communicator and opened the contact list. She chose a name called Mu, but she hesitated and eventually closed it. Just as she was feeling vexed, Linoy's communicator rang. She looked at the name, and her face stiffened. It was Chu Feng. She hated him very much. All the troubles she had recently had something to do with him. Is there anything else? She asked coldly. You're the one who's in trouble, okay? That bat and that big spider are about to die. How long do you plan to leave them here? Chu Feng asked. I'll talk to them, the woman said in a low voice. Even now, there was a hint of disdain in her tone. She ordered Chu Feng to pass the communicator to the two people. I've told you before. Both of them have fainted. Their injuries are too severe. They won't make it. Even I'm scared to death. Hurry up and get someone to take them away. Chu Feng urged. The woman was silent for a moment. She told Chu Feng that someone would be there in a day or two. She told him to take good care of them. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. After the call ended, Chu Feng happily went to bed. However, the woman couldn't sleep. She was angry. She felt that she wasn't able to deal with this matter in a detached manner. She was too emotional. I don't care if it's you or someone else. I'll get rid of you. The woman was determined. Her eyes were cold. Early in the morning, Chu Feng sat facing the morning glow. Every morning and night, he would practice a special breathing technique. He knew that this breathing technique was more important than the Demon Ox boxing style. This could be seen from Yellow Ox's behavior. No matter how lazy this fellow was, this was the only thing he never stopped working on. Even the Demon Ox boxing style of its own race wasn't as diligent as it was now. After breakfast, Chu Feng called Yellow Cattle and said, Let's go. We're going into the mountains. Moo. Yellow Cattle was carving words on the ground. What if someone else comes? Their target is me and the missing mutants. What can we do if they're not here? Chu Feng smiled. He wasn't worried at all. Those people couldn't stand in the light. Even if they wanted to kill him, they would have to arrange for an accidental death. As long as he wasn't here, nothing would happen. Forget it. I don't want to trouble them. Let's just leave a note. Chu Feng fetched a piece of paper and wrote some big words on it. Then he pasted it on the door. Those people had always been unscrupulous. They didn't care about him at all. They would definitely barge in. There weren't many words on it. It was very simple. I've been frightened recently. I'm touring the mountains to relieve my boredom. In the end, he even marked out the correct path to the desolate mountain he wanted to go to. If there was an urgent matter, he could go into the mountains to look for it. If someone really came, none of them would be able to leave. This was Chu Feng's plan. If they wanted to harm him, they would have to bear the consequences. As for that woman, Chu Feng hated her very much. He was waiting for her to send more mutants. He would kill all of her trusted subordinates, break her claws and teeth, and make her or the people behind her suffer. However, he wouldn't wait here just to delay his time. If they wanted to find him, they would come knocking on his door. If he went into the mountains to train his fist technique, those mutants would follow him into the mountains. On the way, Chu Feng came across Zhou Quan. Recently, I've been training in the mountains. I feel like I've improved in all aspects. Although it's full of danger, it's a good place. He decided to call Fatso Zhou and bring him along to train. Zhou Quan was a mutant, far better than ordinary people. If he could train in the desolate mountains, he would be able to improve further. Come, let's find that fatso first. Now, he had achieved some success in his fist technique. His physique had improved tremendously, and he possessed astonishing speed and strength. Traveling 100 miles was not a problem at all. In the past, the distance between the county and Chinyang town was only a dozen miles. Now, it had reached an astonishing 100 miles. Moreover, there were many mysterious mountains along the way. Fatso, I'm looking for you. Let's get out of the county. I'll take you to a fun place. Chufeng called Zhou Quan. When Fatty Zhou heard this, he let out a cry as if he was very excited. I've been holding back recently. When you come to the county, I'll treat you. I'll take you to eat to your heart's content. After that, we'll go for a bath at night. As for the alluring street, if you're interested, I'll definitely accompany you. What are you talking about? I'll take you to a good place later. It's much more exciting than the place you mentioned. I guarantee you'll be so excited that your heart and lungs will tremble. Chufeng said. What? There's such a good place? How come I don't know about it? I'm familiar with the county. No matter what, I'm a local tyrant. Zhou Quan screamed in disbelief. You'll know in a while. Just wait. Chufeng chuckled. All right, I'll pick you up outside the county. Fatso Zhou was very excited. Outside the county, a silver-gray car rushed over. It was Zhou Quan. When he saw Chufeng, he slammed on the brakes, opened the door, and jumped out. Brother, long time no see. I missed you so much. Zhou Quan was very enthusiastic. He came up and gave Chufeng a bear hug. Chufeng was a little dazed. Was this still Fatso Zhou? He was skinny now. There was nothing close to being fat. Of course, the most eye-catching thing was his slick back hair. It was too exaggerated. His hair was combed back. It was thick and thick. If one did not look closely, it looked like a dustpan. Chufeng couldn't help but laugh. He could see 2 ox horns hidden in the slicked back hair. No wonder Fatso's parents scolded him for looking like a hooligan and not a good person. If he didn't look like a good person, then no one else could. Fatso Zhou looked distressed. He sighed and touched his slicked back hair. He was furious. He had grown 2 ox horns out of nowhere. It was infuriating. It's good to be optimistic. At least you've successfully lost weight. Chufeng laughed. In the past, Zhou Quan had a round belly, a chubby face, and big ears. When he smiled, he looked like a Methriel Buddha. Now he was skinny. Where's the bull demon? Fatso Zhou asked. At the same time, he said, All right, I brought 2 of my cousins over. I heard that the place was so good, so they shamelessly followed us. Chufeng heard that and frowned slightly. He was in trouble now. He didn't want people to see him walking with Zhou Quan, so he asked him to leave the county. In a while, he could only remind Fatso to tell his 2 cousins to keep their mouths shut. Bull demon. Zhou Quan finally found the yellow cattle. It was sitting on a large green rock in the distance, like a human sitting cross-legged. Its 2 front hooves were holding a wild fruit and eating it happily. Seeing Zhou Quan greeted, it strolled over and stood upright on its hind legs. Oh my God! In the distance, the 2 young men who had already gotten off the car screamed in fear. Their faces were pale as if they had seen a ghost. They almost jumped on the car and ran away. What are you panicking for? Come here. At this critical moment, Zhou Quan remained calm and collected. He called his 2 cousins over and introduced them to each other with a solemn face. It's not like you don't know about the appearance of mutants nowadays. Can't you see the horns on my head? This master is similar, but he's a failure. There was a mistake during the mutation, so he looks like a cow. Is that so? The 2 young men were doubtful. Yellow Cattle's nose was emitting white smoke, but it held back in the end. It stretched out one of its front hooves and lifted Zhou Quan's swept back hair. It looked at Zhou Quan again and again. Finally, it held its stomach and couldn't stop laughing. Zhou Quan's face turned green and white. He said angrily, What are you laughing at? Isn't it just 2 horns? It's better than you. Yellow Cattle carved on the ground and said, Bull Demon Evolution Incomplete Form. Then it pointed at Fatso. F***CK. Who are you calling a bull demon? I'm going to kill you. Zhou Quan was anxious and pounced on it. Chufeng rubbed his forehead. These 2 were born to be enemies. They fought each other as soon as they were together. It was really hopeless. You're the bull demon. Your whole family is the bull demon. After being separated, Fatso Joe was still making a ruckus. Yellow Cattle was disdainful. Stupid cow, go and find out what the bull demon is. Don't call me that. Zhou Quan glared. Yellow Cattle took out the communicator from the big cloth bag on its body and quickly searched. Then it opened its mouth and laughed even more exaggeratedly. It couldn't stop. Zhou Quan stared blankly at it. Although he had heard from Chu Feng that this guy was addicted to the communicator and often harassed people, he still couldn't help but feel a little dazed when he saw it with his own eyes. Bull demon, he screamed. In the end, Zhou Quan sternly warned his two cousins before sending them away. He himself followed Chu Feng towards the mountain. Brother, where is the fun place you mentioned? Why are we walking toward the mountain? Zhou Quan was puzzled. The road is right. We're almost there. That's good. By the way, is it really exciting? Zhou Quan was looking forward to it. Don't worry. I guarantee that it will be an unprecedented experience. I've told you that your heart and lungs will tremble with excitement. Let's go. Chu Feng led the way. Oh, I've also heard that there are manors built by tycoons in the Taiyang Mountains. Don't tell me you have such connections. Let's go, I like it. I heard that that kind of place can make people drunk. Oh, by the way, was it not affected by the changes? Is it still open? Don't worry, it's not affected, Chu Feng replied. Chapter 34. It likes the name Yellow Cattle very much. On the way, Zhou Quan was dumbfounded when he learned of the situation. At the same time, he felt that it was unfair. That was because he had once named Yellow Cattle Bull Demon. In the end, he was looked down upon by the bull. However, in the end, that picky fellow chose such a name. Moo! Yellow Ox let out a cry, holding its head high with a proud look on its face. It was as if it was quite satisfied with this beautiful name. You're still proud of yourself? Zhou Quan did not know what to say. In his opinion, that was such a lousy name. To think that the bull would accept it. Yellow Cattle looked askance at Zhou Quan, as if to say, what? Do you have a problem with that? You're a scalper, yet you're still so proud of yourself. Don't you know how to use your communicator? Hurry up and find out what Yellow Cattle means. Zhou Quan said. Yellow Ox was bewildered and puzzled. Chu Feng saw that something was wrong. He felt a little guilty and said, don't listen to his nonsense. It's more important to hurry. Yellow Cattle was alert. It knew Chu Feng very well. After hearing that, it took out its communicator and started to poke at it. After reading it, it was stunned and speechless for a long time. What do you think? Zhou Quan asked with a fake smile. Yellow Cattle came to its senses. Its expression was unfriendly, and white smoke was coming out of its nostrils. Then, it gritted its teeth and stared at Chu Feng. Its hooves started to dig and stomp on the ground. It was about to charge at Chu Feng. Chu Feng did not panic. He was quite calm. He said unhurriedly, what do those vulgar people know? Don't be misled. Let me tell you, the term yellow cattle is actually very special. It has a deep meaning. It's just that it has been misunderstood in recent years. Yellow Cattle stopped. It was doubtful. Chu Feng wore a solemn expression as he explained in a serious tone. Look carefully. What does yellow represent? In ancient times, it was a synonym for honor and luxury. Only the royal family could wear the yellow robe. It was indescribably noble. Then, he looked at the character for Ox. How should he put it? His character was really good. You see, as long as someone or something is mentioned, people will usually give a thumbs up and say, awesome. Fatso Zhou was dumbfounded as he watched him spout nonsense with a straight face. In the end, he couldn't help but add, the word awesome has too many uses. For example, awesome. Chu Feng deliberately put on a straight face and refuted, vulgar. Zhou Quan was not convinced and argued. What's so vulgar about that? There's one more common word that I haven't said, and that's cow bang. Yellow Cattle kicked him and sent him flying. Its expression was unfriendly as it warned him not to talk nonsense. Zhou Quan was indignant, but he had no place to reason with. He told the truth, and as a result, he was kicked by the cow. While Chu Feng was spouting nonsense, the cow was listening to him in high spirits, nodding its head repeatedly. That's why I said that the combination of yellow and ox is a good name. Don't pay attention to the misunderstandings of those vulgar people. Chu Feng said, "Moo." Yellow Cattle nodded in agreement. Who could he reason with? Zhou Quan turned his head angrily and looked elsewhere. He said, "You guys are good. The ox has a piece of land." "He's scolding you," Chu Feng reminded Yellow Cattle. What did he mean? Yellow Cattle was confused. "It's nothing. I'm just saying that the ox family has a piece of land. Ignore him." Zhou Quan hurriedly explained, afraid that the bull demon would fly into a rage. At the same time, he became more and more flustered as he walked through this desolate mountainous region. Where were they? There were no villages in front or shops behind. There were mountains everywhere, and miasma pervaded the air. Roar! Suddenly, a loud bestial roar was heard. The wind whistled through the mountain woods, and the leaves rustled. It was a terrifying scene. With a swoosh, all the hair on Zhou Quan's body stood on end. He felt a chill run down his spine. "Brother, I say we've gone the wrong way. We've entered the desolate mountains by mistake. Let's retreat quickly." He was terrified, and his expression was full of anxiety. "This is the road. We'll be fine once we pass through here. Do you know what's called a paradise?" Chu Feng said with a smile. "What? It's behind these mountains?" Zhou Quan was astonished. However, he immediately revealed an expression of great interest and excitement. He rubbed his hands and said, as expected of a manor built by a corporation, "It's indeed extravagant. The appearance of these desolate mountains adds a sense of mystery to this place." "It's not just a sense of mystery. You'll understand once we get there. It's so mysterious that you'll be dumbfounded," Chu Feng said calmly. Zhou Quan nodded repeatedly. "I'm really looking forward to it." In the end, they entered the desolate mountains, and Zhou Quan began his wondrous journey. Zhou Quan let out a loud cry as he walked. He jumped up with goosebumps all over his body and was almost scared to death. There was a giant bear up ahead. Just its face alone was as big as a house. It was poking its head out from the thistles and almost bumped into Zhou Quan and gave him a bear kiss. One had to know that this bear could swallow several adults in one gulp after opening its bloody maw. Zhou Quan almost peed his pants. He frantically ran backwards with his body trembling all over. He hid behind Chu Feng and the Yellow Cattle. Chu Feng's shout shocked the giant bear out of its wits. It then turned around and ran away in a panic because it had seen this human more than once. It had seen him slaughter even more powerful monsters. It ran away? Zhou Quan was astonished and puzzled. "It's nothing. It's just a big black bear raised by the manor. In fact, it's quite afraid of strangers. Didn't you see that it ran away as soon as I roared?" Chu Feng explained calmly. Zhou Quan was puzzled. What kind of manor was this? It was so mysterious. Although he was afraid, he was looking forward to it even more. Ghost! Not long after, Zhou Quan screamed again. He inadvertently raised his head and saw a white thread as thick as a thumb. It was hanging a demon-faced spider the size of a millstone. It was falling from the huge, ancient tree and was less than 3 feet away from his head. He was terrified and paralyzed. He sat on the ground and used his hands and feet to retreat. Bang! Chu Feng didn't care at all. He lifted his foot and kicked the big spider away. Zhou Quan rolled his eyes and swallowed hard. He then patted his chest and felt suffocated. He was so scared that he almost fainted. "Brother, this road is not easy to walk. It's better not to go. Why do I feel like I'm watching a prehistoric movie? What kind of monsters are these?" One after another. He was short of breath and almost couldn't stand it. At the same time, he felt that Chu Feng was too bold. He dared to kick such a big spider without even blinking his eyes. Not long after, Zhou Quan's eyes widened. This time, he didn't think that Chu Feng was simply bold. This was because a one-eyed wolf had silently appeared in the forest. It was too big. It was 10 meters long and several meters tall. Its fangs were like shiny sabers, incomparably sharp. At the same time, this one-eyed old wolf had wings on both sides of its body. This was a creature that could fly. Zhou Quan was so scared that he turned around and wanted to run. However, he found that Chu Feng was the opposite. He directly rushed up and was quite calm. He raised his fist and punched. The next moment, Zhou Quan was dumbfounded. Chu Feng was incomparably vigorous. His fists whistled with a strong wind, accompanied by the sound of thunder. The one-eyed old wolf howled and retreated step by step. Am I dreaming? What did I see? Did I return to ancient times and watch a real wilderness movie? Zhou Quan bit his lower lip to make sure that he wasn't dreaming. He was so scared that he kept retreating. He was incomparably nervous and wanted to turn around and run. Yellow Cattle looked at him in disdain. Soon, it disappeared. Not long after, it hooked up with a 3-meter-tall monkey and lured it toward Zhou Quan. Ah, save me! Zhou Quan screamed in horror. That monkey was too big. It was more than 3 meters tall and had a mouthful of sharp white teeth. It looked down at him as if it was looking at a little chick. The place was suddenly thrown into chaos. Zhou Quan fled frantically while the big monkey chased after him with all its might. Roar! Zhou Quan was forced into a corner. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of flame that could melt gold and melt stone. The temperature was so high that it was frightening. With a puff, a towering ancient tree was turned into ashes. The big monkey was frightened and quickly retreated. Zhou Quan's face was pale as he also retreated. Chu Feng had dealt with the one-eyed old wolf and was walking over. You have to keep calm and display your ability. As a mutant, why would you be afraid of monkey? Chu Feng encouraged him. Brother, don't cheat me like this. What the hell is this place? Where's the villa? Where's my gentle home? Zhou Quan was sobbing as his body trembled. Not everyone can enter the villa. This is a test that must be passed. You have to defeat this big monkey. Chu Feng said in a serious tone. Ah! Zhou Quan screamed. He had no choice but to fight with his life on the line. The big monkey pounced towards him with a wild and ferocious nature. It had taken the initiative to kill. Huff! Zhou Quan opened his mouth and spat out flames continuously. The area was submerged by the raging flames. Chu Feng and Yellow Cattle rushed to put out the fire. They were afraid that the monkey would burn down the mountain forest. In the end, the big monkey was seriously injured and ran away. Zhou Quan sat on the ground and finally lay there, gasping for breath. His whole body was covered with white sweat. He was so scared that he was about to collapse. Brother, I don't want to go to the gentle home anymore. Let's go back. My little heart can't take it anymore. Zhou Quan said with a sobbing tone. Since you are already here, don't be afraid. You have defeated such a big and fierce monkey. As a mutant, you are very strong. What are you afraid of? Chu Feng comforted him. This is not a place for people to stay. It's too scary. There are prehistoric monsters everywhere. I won't go back. Zhou Quan shook his head vigorously like a rattle drum. However, Chu Feng and Yellow Cattle refused to go back. Hey, by the way, how are you so powerful that you can deal with such a big one-eyed old wolf? It could only be said that Zhou Quan's nerves were thick. He only remembered this after such a long time. He looked very surprised and asked there. Of course, it was mainly because he was scared. Just now, his mind was in a mess and he couldn't care about anything. Only now did his mood gradually calm down. If you fight with the beasts here every day, you'll be able to face them calmly. You won't be as weak as you are now, Chu Feng said. Moments later, when Chu Feng was engaged in a fierce battle with a 10-meter-long bird, Zhou Quan's eyes were glued to the ground. He realized that this brother of his was truly a man of unparalleled power. It's a fantasy blockbuster, he murmured to himself, because Chu Feng and the giant bird were fighting very fiercely. They fought from the ground to the ancient tree, and even chased each other into the sky. Chu Feng leaped up and landed on the back of the giant bird. Then, he followed the bird as it soared into the sky. He threw punch after punch at the bird. After gliding through the air for several hundred meters, he killed the giant bird. Both of them fell into the woods. Zhou Quan felt that he was a little deranged. Today's experience was too shocking. It was simply unbelievable, and he couldn't come back to his senses. This is the land of tenderness? After an unknown period of time, he murmured. He had already come to his senses. However, he really couldn't withstand this kind of tenderness. Next, Zhou Quan went from horror blockbusters to wilderness blockbusters, and then to fantasy blockbusters. He had a feast for his eyes. They were all epic blockbusters, but they were too terrifying. He often had to experience them personally. This day felt like a year to him. In the end, Zhou Quan cried. He had an unforgettable realization. Chapter 35. Snake, a strange snake with 8 heads, help. A silver centipede. Oh my god, it's 2 meters long. It's chasing me. Help. Chu Feng, you bastard. Is this what it means to be a woman? Hurry up and kill the insects. Here it comes again. A black tiger. It smashed a 1,000-pound boulder with a single claw. I can't run anymore. Bull demon, save me. Chu Feng, save me. On this day, Zhou Quan was wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf as he ran for his life. He was so tired that he was foaming at the mouth and almost convulsing. He was frightened and frightened at the same time. Finally, it was noon. Yellow Cattle was hungry and wanted to eat. Only then did they end their journey. At this moment, Zhou Quan's tears were about to flow out. He felt incomparably happy. It was finally over. His throat had become hoarse. For most of the day, he was either screaming for his life or spitting fire from his mouth to fight against the giant beasts. His throat was swollen. Brother, you are too cruel. Not only my heart and lungs are trembling, but even my soul is trembling. Zhou Quan sat on the ground and gasped for breath. Looking back, the desolate mountain was filled with miasma and the roars of beasts. He really didn't want to go back there again. Today's experience was really unforgettable. Do you know why I can deal with the giant beasts? It's because I came here every day to train and slowly adapted to it. Chu Feng comforted him. How can I be compared to you? With a single punch, you can smash a boulder that weighs thousands of kilograms and kill a giant bird that is more than 10 meters long. You're a monster yourself. There is no way I can survive here. Zhou Quan shouted. You are a mutant. The fire you spit out can melt gold and melt rocks. As long as you can completely control it, it should be no problem for you to walk in the mountains. Chu Feng said. He felt that, as a mutant, Zhou Quan's ability could be improved. However, he needed to constantly train in order to force out the hidden power in his body. At the same time, since Zhou Quan had grown ox horns, perhaps the fruit he ate was really related to the Ox Demon clan. He could ask the Yellow Cattle to teach him a few tricks to save his life. Chu Feng was very serious, expressing his worries for the future. The world was still changing, and the monsters in the mountains might rush out one day. Besides, who knew if there would be something even more terrifying? In this critical period, only by improving himself could he survive in the future. Seeing how solemn he was, Zhou Quan withered. In today's world, who didn't have a sense of crisis deep in their hearts? The world was becoming more and more incomprehensible, and many people were worried. Brother, I know you're doing this for my own good. You're right, I'm going all out. Zhou Quan made up his mind. In the mountains, 2 people and a cow sat together, watching over the fire. The raptor's leg meat was roasted until it was golden and shiny, emitting an alluring fragrance. The oil dripped onto the fire and made sizzling sounds. Why is it so fragrant? Zhou Quan had forgotten the previous suffering. Looking at the golden meat, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Especially after struggling for half a day, he felt even more unbearably hungry. It's cooked. Chu Feng sprinkled salt and a layer of honey, making the raptor's leg even more fragrant. He himself was also tempted. Moo! 2 people and a cow started a fight over the delicacy. In an instant, the place was filled with chewing and swallowing sounds. All 3 of them were wolfing down the food. Oh my God, it's amazing. I've never eaten such delicious and fragrant game. This meat is really amazing. I can't eat it outside. Zhou Quan exclaimed. This wasn't an exaggeration. Some vicious birds and strange beasts' meat was exceptionally delicious. With just a little processing, it would be very delicious, and the rich fragrance could permeate for a long time. A very large bird's leg was eaten clean by them. If it wasn't for their huge appetites, they might have roasted the other leg as well. This is too satisfying. This taste, oh, it's even better than the immortal banquet. Just for this delicacy, I'll come again in the future. Zhou Quan was incomparably satisfied. He lay there, caressing his bulging belly as if he had forgotten about his miserable appearance not long ago. Chu Feng and Yellow Cattle were eating a type of bright red berry. It melted in the mouth, and the fruit was sweet and fragrant. It was a rare top-grade fruit. For the past few days, they had been eating all kinds of berries as vegetables to supplement their needs. They also felt that it was sweet and tasty. Zhou Quan tasted one and immediately snatched it. Even if his stomach was empty, he still forced himself to eat it. Moreover, he shouted that this place would really be his sweet and tender home in the future. Yellow Cattle heard this and immediately looked down on him. He took out his communicator and ferociously poked at it, showing him the pictures he had taken earlier. Zhou Quan flew into a rage out of humiliation after seeing it. Bull demon, how dare you take pictures of me in secret? You don't capture the brilliant and heroic scene, but must you vilify me like this? He angrily shouted there. Each of the pictures had its own characteristics. Chu Feng glanced at them and suddenly burst into laughter. In one picture, Zhou Quan's eyes were rolling back because of fear. He was so scared that he was about to faint. In another picture, Zhou Quan was covered in tears and snot, covering his head and scurrying away like a rat. In another picture, his pupils were wide open, and he was scared out of his wits. There were only a few pictures, but they could be said to be classic. All of them poked at Zhou Quan's heart and lungs. Wait a minute. Suddenly, Zhou Quan's expression changed, and he cried out involuntarily, "That's the embarrassing pictures sharing website. Where did you post it?" Yellow Cattle proudly nodded there, meaning that it was just a few pictures. It was too easy. Zhou Quan almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What kind of place was the embarrassing pictures sharing website? As the name suggested, it was a platform that specialized in posting embarrassing pictures. The number of visitors every day was frightening. It could be said that as long as there was a slightly interesting, embarrassing picture, it was guaranteed to be spread out in the shortest time possible. Fatso Zhou immediately panicked and shouted, "Bull demon, I'll fight it out with you." In the end, Yellow Cattle kicked him to the side with its hoof. It found it baffling. Wasn't it just a few pictures? Why was he so agitated? If he was too rash, he wouldn't amount to much. "Bull demon, you're bullying me." Zhou Quan stomped his feet there. He was really angry. Don't be anxious. There are a large number of new pictures posted there every day. Many of them are buried the moment they are posted. They don't even have a chance to appear. Chu Feng comforted him. This comforted Zhou Quan a little, and he felt a little relieved. He moved closer to Yellow Cattle and looked at the number of views. In the end, his blood pressure skyrocketed, and his vision turned black. He almost fell to the ground. How long had it been? It had almost broken 100,000 views. "Bull demon, I'm going to kill you." Fatso Zhou howled miserably. His face turned green. It's increasing really fast. The number of views has officially broken through the 100,000 mark. It can be considered a real fire picture, Chu Feng said from the side. "God damn it, someone save me." Zhou Quan clutched his head. It was extremely distressed. He had a feeling that these pictures might push him to the eyes of the entire country. However, it wouldn't be outstanding. That was because these were embarrassing pictures posted on the internet. "Bull demon, look at what you've done." Zhou Quan rushed over again and wrestled with Yellow Cattle. Clearly, he was no match and was easily suppressed. "Damn cow, what are you laughing at? Don't you have any sense of shame after doing such an infuriating thing?" Zhou Quan shouted angrily. Yellow Cattle ignored him. He stared at the screen and was reading the comments under the pictures with relish. Zhou Quan glanced at it. There were more than 10,000 comments. This caused his blood pressure to rise again. These pictures can only be considered passable when looked at individually. However, when put together, it's a set of top-notch emoticons. Look, some of them rolled their eyes in extreme horror, some of them cried with tears and snot streaming down their cheeks, and some of them ran away in fear. So many of them put together, it's really a divine picture. That's right. I can imagine it being popular for more than a year. I have to download a set. This person is really funny. What era is it already? He still has a slicked back hairstyle. Thank you, Opie. I've already saved it and put it in the emoticon pack. Zhou Quan grabbed the communicator. At this moment, his combat power skyrocketed. He typed furiously and fought with those who left comments. Chu Feng was quite speechless. Where's the administrator? Delete these pictures. Zhou Quan left a message angrily and filed a complaint. He wanted to find the administrator to delete the pictures. At the same time, he also complained about the people in the comment section. That was because he was being attacked by a group of people in the comment section. In the end, the administrator quickly replied, "Sorry, your complaint request has failed. These pictures have been approved by more than 99% of the users and will be at the top of the forum for a month." Huffed. Fatso Zhou couldn't help but vomit blood. Not only did his request to delete the pictures fail, but he also had to be at the top of the forum for a month. What kind of bastard administrator was this? He cursed. Ha! Chu Feng couldn't help but burst into laughter. He couldn't stop. As for the culprit, Yellow Cattle, it was floating there, enjoying the praises of countless comments. Those comments were expressing its approval. Great OP, please accept my knees. Thank you so much. Oh, the OP is a genius. When Zhou Quan saw Yellow Cattle floating there, accepting the worship and praise, he couldn't take it anymore. He was so angry that his blood pressure reached the warning line. He was about to smash the communicator. Yellow Cattle's eyes were sharp and its hooves were fast. It snatched the communicator. Not bad. Chu Feng carefully looked at the pictures and made such an evaluation. When Zhou Quan was in despair, hearing such words was like seeing a clear stream in the desert. He felt a little comforted. He asked nervously, "You think that these pictures aren't that embarrassing, right?" "Very embarrassing. I just think that not taking a picture of the monster that chased after you didn't reveal anything. So it's not bad," Chu Feng replied. Zhou Quan directly turned his head and ignored him. Not long after, Zhou Quan's communicator rang. Someone was looking for him. "Big cousin, you're too talented." Once those divine pictures were released, they became popular all over the world. When these words came, Fatso Zhou was so angry that he wanted to smash the communicator again. However, he realized that it was his, so he could only end the conversation fiercely. However, immediately after, someone was looking for him. This time, it was his second cousin. As soon as he picked up, he heard his loud voice. "Cousin, I admire you from the bottom of my heart. You're too talented. Talented my ass. Get lost." Zhou Quan was furious. Then, the communicator rang nonstop. Many acquaintances were looking for him. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.